Would it be fair to say that this is by far the most sort of politically complex plot for a Super Nintendo game that exists?
So far, yes. Absolutely.
I can't say. Welcome back to the State of the Arc podcast. My name is Mike.
My name's Kason.
And we are here to discuss Tactics Ogre. Once again, we are joined by Ivan. How you doing, dude?
Hello, guys.
Welcome back. We talked last time about basically just like the surrounding kind of politics, the factions, the kingdoms, try to like get that all straight so people know what these names are and what they're referring to. Then we started into chapter 1. We got through Goliath, which is like the opening town where Denim and Vice and Kachua are going to try to ambush Lancelot. And they find out it's the wrong Lancelot. And he decides to join them, and they're going to go try to free the Duke Ronway, in Castle Almorica. So that's where we're at now, Almorica. I guess before we do that, Ivan, was there anything that we said last time that you want to circle back on, or
I realized that we're talking about the Ogre Battle World, but we never actually talked about what Ogre Battle means in this universe.
Ah, yes. Go for it.
So this was the mythical war between the heavens and the earth, where the ogres rose up against the gods, and the gods and men fought against the ogres and drove them underground, and that was known as the Ogre Battle. Roughly. And so everyone knows about this in this world because this is like their creation myth. A lot of the heroes come from this era. So I guess it was kind of an oversight to not mention that, considering the name of the series.
Well,
very interesting.
I do remember there being some dialogue here. I don't think it's in the path that we're doing, which is neutral, chaotic route. But I do think there's some dialogue where I think it's Dame Ravnus, if I'm not mistaken, says something about...
Well, people will be compared to ogres a lot, yeah.
She's saying something about how they're no better than ogres, and she kind of describes what ogres are or something like that.
I don't actually remember that. Maybe it's in my notes, but are we going to get to it in chapter 1?
I think so.
Ah, okay.
It doesn't come up in chapter 1, but it's just one of those baseline things that I feel like I should have mentioned. That is something that everyone in this universe knows. It's not necessarily obvious.
Yeah.
Also, apparently the name of Ogre Battle comes from Queen.
Yes.
But
it's all from Queen songs. Let Us Cling Together.
Yeah.
I know, but
the
Ogre
March of the
Battle.
Black Queen as well.
I know, but Ogre Battle, those two words.
Oh, is it?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Ogre Battle itself is a Queen song.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Is that correct, Ivan?
It is correct.
So that's weird.
I had no idea. I'd never heard a Queen song with the words Ogre Battle.
Yeah, I haven't either. I learned this in the comment section.
There is another place in this universe that you go to in the game Ogre Battle. It's in Zenobia called the Rye Sea. It's reference to the Queen song, The Seven Seas of Rye.
Oh, okay. Nice.
Of course.
Nice.
Yeah, that's crazy. So Matsuno created some mythology for the Queen song. I'm not sure that's ever been done before.
There's a bit in the interviews where he says that they weren't sure if it was legal for them to take all these names from Queen songs, but they did it because they were just such massive Queen fans.
When you're in a different country in, the 80s and 90s, that's what a lot of people did. And it's so funny. That's why you won't see that as much now. Especially for games that get distributed in America and have a lot more money behind them. They care about these legal issues a lot more than they used to. I know, for the Korean shows that I watch sometimes. Remember City Hunter? They use a track that's straight out of Inception for that show, and I wonder if that's why it got taken down from Netflix. But it's like they don't care. I guarantee you, they did not buy the rights for that song. They just used it because it's Korea. So what? Yeah. But as soon as these dramas start getting bigger and all that stuff, it's like, okay, now you got to worry about this.
Start worrying about.
Got to re-edit your old shows now.
Exactly.
Or the Netflix version of Evangelion, they took out "Fly Me to the Moon" because they didn't have the rights to the Sinatra song.
Oh,
see, it's that exact. Oh, it's Sinatra, nice.
That's funny.
That's funny.
All right, let's talk about Almorica a little bit here. So, once you free the Duke, the gist of this conversation is more or less him being a little bit suspicious of Lancelot. I think he calls out Warren directly.
Yeah.
I've heard, what does he say? It is the whiskers of your companion that give me pause, pointing to Warren here. I hear a diviner matching his description was ever at the side of King Tristan when your new Zenobia came into being 2 years past, and that you, Sir Lancelot, were captain of the Holy Knights. Is the Saint King so brazen as to cast out the very men who placed him on the throne? And then Warren says, I too have heard tell of this diviner, but I am not he. So, obviously they're planting some seeds here for who these guys actually are a little bit.
Sure.
They're denying it.
I mean, he gets it right away. He nails them. Like, that's exactly who they are.
Yeah, I mean...
That's so funny because when you're dealing with medieval times, it's so... I've never grown up in a world where I did not know very well the face of the leaders of my country, or, but that's because of publications and media and the way that we were able to see things, that back in the medieval times, it's like, oh, King George is the king now. Okay. If you saw him, you wouldn't know. You wouldn't know if you were seeing him, or maybe every now and then. It's like, that's why they had those big portraits painted, but you've got to go places to see those, And back in the medieval times, it's like, you didn't really know what most people actually looked like. Sure. And so if they told you they were something, or they denied they were someone, it's like, who are you? Like, okay, you just got to believe them, I guess.
Much less leaders from another country, right? So
yeah, that's right.
From New Zenobia.
Yeah, they're not going to know who these people are, what they look like. Or just like with this mix-up earlier with Lancelot. It's like, oh, I guess you don't have one eye, but we heard someone named Lancelot. We don't know what these guys look like, but yeah, one eye, that's all they know. That's the description, is one eye.
Well, I mean, I guess they would have seen him when they were children, when it was, because he was like standing on top of the ridge.
It was only a year ago, too.
Yeah, that's true. So it wasn't that long ago.
Yeah.
But these identity mix-ups would be common, and it would also be very common to adopt an identity and have nobody really question it.
Yeah, it'd be a lot easier in those days to just take up a new life in the next village.
It's like Obi-Wan.
Okay, so basically, Ronway's like, well, if you guys are looking for employment or whatever, I'll have you train my soldiers here. But he also basically knights Vice and
teenagers.
Denham and Cachua and sends them on a mission where there's this what do you call him, a necromancer, Nibeth.
Yeah, Nibeth.
Right?
Yeah.
And what's the name? Is it Lensor? Lensor is the
Leonard.
It used to be Leonard. They just took away the R.
I know. They just deleted. Someone accidentally deleted the D, and that's what I think happened.
Yeah. So Leonard has run into trouble, and he's sending you out there to go and help.
Yeah.
Against this necromancer Nibeth. You meet Dame Ravnus. Outside.
What a name, by the
castle.
way.
Yeah.
I would not name my daughter Ravnus.
I'm assuming that the dame part is the title.
Yeah, she's a lady. Lady Ravnus. Yeah.
You'll see them call multiple characters dame if they are like high-ranking knight women.
Very good. Okay. And of course, remember, dame, it's kind of like maybe seen as an insult these days, but it's a very polite way. Like Notre Dame means Our Lady. That's That's what dame used to mean. Yeah. Or madame. This is hilarious.
It implies nobility.
Oh, yes, exactly. But nowadays, you call a girl a dame, she'll probably slap you in the face. So don't do it.
It's more of a 1920s way of talking about women.
Exactly.
But she comes across very arrogant, at least to Cachua, the way that she takes it. But they're recognized, our characters are recognized as these heroes of Goliath for having rescued the Duke.
The Duke.
But there's no way that they would have succeeded had Dame Ravnus not taken basically the main force and sort of led them away.
See,
from
this
the
is crazy
castle.
because my note here is that we're just attacking Almorica Castle head on right now, like head on, because it's like we're a bunch of teenagers. We got some people helping us. Okay, let's go free the Duke. Like, okay, frontal assault right on a fortress. That doesn't seem the way to do this. I was expecting us to sneak in or do something else, like a little more secretive. Instead, we just like opened up, like Monty Python, just ran towards the gates and started banging on the stones,
Yeah.
But you're right in that their defenses were light that day, luckily, because Dame Ravnus had distracted most of their forces away from the fortress that day. So really, we got lucky because a frontal assault is not a good idea for rescuing people unless you have a massive army,
Yeah. And so she's kind of making it known
Yes.
that they would not have
Like, hey,
had
you're
that
welcome.
kind of success, right?
It's kind of like, you're trying to open a pickle jar and somebody else like can't do it. So then you get it and you do it quickly and they're like, oh, I loosened it for you. Yeah, you wouldn't have done that if I didn't, Yeah, thanks, Dame Ravnus. Although I think she's right in this case.
That's actually a pretty good analogy. Yeah, she loosened the jar.
She loosened the jar for
It's
us.
but she's not recognized
I know,
as
nope.
the hero of Goliath. But
Nope.
Anyway, so she, ribs you a little bit for that, but seems to have at least some hope or promise that good things will come, that will accomplish good things as we are sent off to rescue Lana.
Yeah, she doesn't hate us. We're on the same side. She has some high standing here, so it's not like she's lost anything that we've gained, and it's all good. She loses a little credit, but whatever. But after this whole conversation where she's like, okay, try your best. We'll see how you do from now on. Kachua has this line that I think is wonderful, where she says, like, oh, I don't want to be around when she falls off her high horse.
Oh, yeah. She says...
That's a foreshadow, by the way.
Yeah, she and her fellow knights drew of the garrison. Okay, that's not it. Here. She thinks highly of herself. I pray we are not near when she falls from such a height.
Exactly. Yeah.
It's a good line.
No, I loved it. I thought that was a great line.
I think the dialogue as a whole so
quite
far
good.
has been actually really good, and
it's probably my favorite part of the game so far. Actually,
yeah, it's no surprise that this version of it was translated by Alexander O. Smith.
It wasn't just translated. The script in this game is twice the length of the original script.
Yeah,
and in fact, the reason you're playing this version, I specifically told you not to play the original because Dame Ravnus does not appear in the original PS1 Super Nintendo version. So you would see the difference right away. This scene does not happen in the original
There's
version.
no Dame Ravnus at all?
Wait, really?
At all.
They added a whole new character, and you're saying that it's a good thing? Sorry, when George Lucas did that, it was like, okay, why did you change the original so much,
Well, because they've expanded the story of the game. There's a lot more content now. It's
wow. I didn't know it was that expensive.
They've really developed a lot of these characters. A lot of the ones that were in the game that were only bit parts have now become like feature characters.
Wow, so the whole everything
came back and gave this game a completely new treatment. That the script is double the length now. A lot more characters interact. You're going to see a lot of differences, and this is one of those. That very early on.
I didn't know they were that different, though.
I'm assuming that this would have been added in the Let's Cling Together PSP version, right?
Yeah.
Oh. Yeah.
Everything that was added to the PSP version. Reborn itself is mostly like that version, but the Super Nintendo version does not have Ravnus.
That's crazy.
That is wild.
Knowing that, and that really changes some things about like later scenes. That's crazy.
Huh.
So, okay, let me get your opinion on that. You've played the original, so like, which do you prefer?
I think the story is much improved in the PSP version. And Reborn as well, which those two are basically identical for all intents and purposes. If you're playing that version instead of the Super Nintendo, there wouldn't be great differences at all, other than in the gameplay.
Okay.
But I still really love the original system of the game. I think it's actually a very straightforward tactical RPG that doesn't bog you down once you know how it works. It's not nearly as complicated as the later versions made it. So it's also a bit more punishing because of permadeath happening as soon as your characters hit 0 HP, and there being very few ways to revive them. But it also plays a lot faster. I think it's much simpler. I actually kind of prefer playing that version. But as far as the story goes, the script is so much better in the remakes that it's night and day.
Okay.
Although it gets a little wordy, I think, but in terms of style. But other than that, no, it's great. I'm glad they
Well,
gave it that full treatment.
So then I have this question. I believe we did address this in the last episode or two, but it has come to my mind again, and I don't know the answer. Matsuno directed and oversaw this new release,
Let's Play
right?
Together version.
Like, I know he did the original, but now that we know that there's this much change, Matsuno, let me check this real quick.
We better.
But he was involved with. He wrote the
Because-
script for both versions.
He wrote the new script for Reborn?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
But Reborn and Lattice again. This is from the 2011 version, and this game have the same script.
Yeah.
Okay,
So when he
that's
remade-
fine. So he still wrote the story. He wrote Lady Ravenous. No one else wrote Lady
Yeah.
Ravenous, right? Okay, good. That's mostly my question.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, that's really, really interesting. I did not know that.
Yeah,
so
me neither. That's
it actually makes me kind of curious. Once we're done with this, maybe I'll go back to the SNES version and just kind of see how that reads in comparison.
You might enjoy playing it a bit more because it's so much more. It's just this formula was kind of invented by this game, and you'll see it a lot more clearly in the older version when you compare it to like Final Fantasy Tactics. This is a very like late refinement now, where the gameplay is been thought a lot more deeply about how it's going to diverge from what's already been done before. So it's kind of trying to avoid being the same game that it used to be in every version of its release. Really,
Wow.
it's giving a new experience in each one of them.
Gotcha. Okay, so there's a couple of battles you fight on the way there at Tynemouth Hill and Crisaro. Do you guys have any notes before we get up to
Are you
Lanar?
reading the?
I do.
What did you say, Ivan?
Are you guys reading the Warren reports as you progress through the game? Because a lot of these
I've been trying to do that.
When you fight them, you find out a little bit about their backstory after you kill them. And this guy was like a famous painter or an architect. One of those.
Who was?
The guy on Tynemouth Hill, the wizard.
Oh, okay.
Bapal? Was it Bapal?
No, that's
Bapal is
the
the
guy at
berserker at
the
Almortal.
castle. This is Orba.
Orba. Okay, yeah.
Yeah. So he's a painter.
It's a big, yeah.
Okay.
What do you think about the tutorials? It's a long tutorial. There's lots and lots and lots of tutorializing in this version of the game. I think it's a bit long, personally, but
I don't know. I didn't really think about it too much, especially for a game this complex. Like, kind of needs it, but
okay.
You're gonna forget all of it, I think. I always skip over it.
It's possible that I am conditioned by like some of the Xenoblade games and the way that they handle tutorials that this doesn't seem bad anymore.
It doesn't seem bad at all. I thought it was a little bit much, but that's fine because they're kind of giving you strategy as well as they're teaching you what things do, and it's like, okay, well,
Well, the
that's
stuff
fine.
they tell you early on is stuff you forget, but is very good advice, like using monsters as stepping stones over certain terrain. You'll just mentions it in the first fight. You forget about it by the time it's relevant.
Darn it. So this is something I think is awesome. This was a huge like selling point for me on this game. When they're sitting at the table and they're done and the meeting's over, they get up, their chairs back up when they get up, and then they go and they push their chair back into the table. Now, I'm the kind of person with pixel art where I love that kind of stuff. Like, no game ever has them push their chair back into the table after they get up. Because pixel art, it's all part of the scene, and they just kind of slide in, slide out. It doesn't really move anything. But to have the chairs be movable in a pixel art type game, I think that's super fun.
Yeah,
it's just really
it's
cool.
a nice touch. It's the attention to detail that like just is an endearing quality.
Endearing, that's the right word.
Suikoden, and well, especially Suikoden 2, uses a lot of unique sprites where you only see that sprite animation like once in the whole game type of thing, right?
That's cool, though.
And this is maybe in the same ballpark where it's like you're not going to get a lot of utility out of the animation of pushing your chair back under the table, but
it does help
to the
things
scene
to feel more real a little bit. And it helps the scene to feel more movable instead of just like static, like pixel art can seem.
It's just a level of polish that makes it stand out. And I always appreciate it when they do that because you don't have to.
Well, okay, so there's this part before we fight Leonard that I want to bring up, okay? And it's about Vice, unfortunately. Okay. So we get in this fight, and who is it? Canopus? The first fight after we leave.
Yes, when he comes back and
he comes back to help us out, and Vice is like mad at him and throwing rocks at him, and they're like fighting each other during the middle of the battle, and Vice is kind of dumb. Like, come on, man, come on. This fight during the middle of the battle is what really kind of helps to solidify his character in my mind, like who he is. He's very rash. He's very thoughtless. He's not tactful. He doesn't understand. Like, you're in life or death situations here, and you're picking a fight. Come on, man.
Yeah. So I want to get Ivan's opinion about this, because this is going to be an ongoing point of discussion about Vice all the way through the end of the chapter. Maybe he knows where we'll be coming from a little bit on this. I despise Vice. I don't think there was one moment in that he ever opened his mouth where I got a sense that I understood where he was coming from, or maybe why he's as angry as he is, or I mean, there's certainly no tact in anything he says. He's very selfish character.
Yeah.
He's very rude character all the time. I think Sistina, puts it really well in a later battle where she's like, you guys refuse cooperation. You only care about yourselves. That's perfectly describes Vice's attitude about how he wants to go about bettering the Wallisters' situation.
Yeah.
And
it's very short-sighted.
I feel like it's hard for me to understand why Denim and Quechua are friends. They're supposed to be friends with him. He doesn't behave like a friend to them.
No, in fact, Quechua often, at least one time, Quechua tells Denim, hey, don't let Vice's words get to you. Almost like she's describing a bully, basically. She's describing, like, oh, Denim, don't let it. That's what you say when somebody you don't like is saying stuff to you. But here they are, like really good friends, and Quechua's saying, oh, don't let him get to you. Like, wait a second, this is...
Yeah, so Ivan, I want to get your feelings on Vice and how he works as a character within the story before we continue on.
Yeah, I mean, the reason that they're friends in this context, I think, is very... makes perfect sense. They're from a small town. And they just went through a traumatic experience where both of their parents were just killed in the same event. They're kind of trauma bonded together just from growing up together. I mean, that would be why with Quechua you see that with Denim especially, but it's true for all three of them at this time.
So they're bonded through trauma. There may not have been a ton of kids in the town, so Vice and Denim, they're friends by default.
Well, my feeling on this is, you're using the word bond in Trauma Bond, but I'm not seeing a bond between these characters as much as just like they are on the same side strictly out of necessity.
Well, because they're both like Wallister people.
Right.
Yeah.
It's more like he's an acquaintance, somebody who wants the same thing we want, which is revenge on Lancelot, but they don't come across in any way as having any real friendship or bond.
Yeah, I think just one scene of them having some type of interaction like that would have gone a long way in this game.
I agree. And instead, they gave a scene to Denim and Lancelot. And I'm thinking all throughout that scene, why can't we have one of these for Vice?
This should be Vice, that's right.
Where they can calm down for a second and get underneath that layer, that fierceness that Vice is always giving off, and get to who he is under that for a second.
Right.
So I can get to know who he is outside of just this blatantly pretty terrible guy.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, I'll pass it back over to you, Ivan, because this really affected how I felt about the big moment at the end. And so I'd like as much perspective on these three characters as I can before we talk about that.
I don't think Vice is supposed to be very likable. Even in the original script, where he doesn't have that fight with Canopus at the beginning, that dialogue was also added in.
Okay.
He still comes off as very aggressive, very rude, except for one big exception we'll get to in this chapter. But I think you are supposed to feel like he has a bit of resentment toward Denim doesn't seem to care either way. He seems to just tolerate him and thinks of him as a friend, actually, genuinely. Achua doesn't really care about anyone other than Denim.
Okay, but you say so. You
he
say
always
that.
feels like he's... Go ahead.
Well, you say that Denim thinks of Vice as a friend. Genuinely. Is this later in the game that we learned that?
Yeah, you'll see them. This relationship gets developed in a couple of different ways through different routes.
Well, that's good then. Then I have something to look forward to. Okay, good.
In the Chaos and Neutral routes is going to be very different from the Vice that will be developed in the Lawful route.
Well, that
so
yeah, we're going to talk.
That
about
might be one of the issues here. Okay.
Yeah, it's a character that has a couple of different ways to interpret him, and right at the beginning, I don't think you're supposed to like him.
Okay.
Okay.
Makes perfect sense.
Yeah, he's definitely a very unlikable character. So yeah,
I don't think you're supposed to like Kachua very much either, though.
Huh.
I could see that. I mean,
Okay.
I was suspicious of her
people
at
don't.
first too, but
Yeah.
anyway, Canopus ends up. Is that how you say his name? Canopus?
It's a star that
Canopus? I don't know.
Say it again, Ivan.
Canopus?
Canopus. Okay.
Real quick, Ivan, who are you supposed to like in this game?
Not a lot of people.
Okay. So it is accomplishing its goal. Denim, yeah, by default. Yeah, okay. Denim.
All right.
Denim's pretty cool.
Canopus joins us. In the next battle, we come across a new character that we end up recruiting, kind of along with Leonard, but he's out in the battle itself. His name is Donalto. He's like a priest of Philaha?
A reference to The Exorcist, the film The Exorcist, and he's also deliberately named after Donald Pleasance, the actor from Halloween.
Oh, really?
Nice.
Yeah.
That's cool. That's
Like,
fun.
All these references I would never caught.
Me neither.
Donald Pleasance,
No,
the psychiatrist from Halloween.
Okay, sweet. Sick. Are there going to be a ton of these kinds of references throughout the game?
There used to be a lot more because of the way that the characters used to look like Hollywood stars.
They've changed that a bit.
Yeah.
But this one, it kind of remains across all versions. He's kind of remains static. Yeah, and his name is always a reference to Donald Pleasance.
Awesome. That's awesome.
His little dialogue when he does the exorcism is different in all three versions. And it's a reference. The first one is the exorcism spell instantly kills undead. You don't have to knock them out. They would just disappear. So he would cast a spell and it would work, and he'd be like, oh, this is how you deal with undead. And then on the PSP version, he tries it again, and in that version, you have to knock the undead out before it works. He's like, it's been 15 years since I've done this. And then in Reborn, it's the same thing. You have to knock them out. And he's like, it's been a quarter century.
That's funny. So in the original game, the spell would just kill the undead.
Yeah.
That was a lot easier.
It had a mischance, but it mostly just killed undead. But it was very rare to see undead. You rarely took the spell. You only had 3 spell slots. And if you could recruit an undead, which you can't really do in Reborn this early on, it was very helpful because enemies rarely had it. So you could cheese a lot of levels with some ghosts.
Yeah. I mean, that makes sense why they changed it. But yeah, like now with undead enemies, you got to knock them down first, and then you got to use the exorcism spell in order to actually kill them for real.
Which is a little
kind of the
less
gimmick to this battle.
Less cheap or something like that.
Yeah.
Less cheap.
So yeah, there's...
I can't remember the character's name, though. Did you get it?
Donalto?
Oh, Donalto.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, he was just talking about as a
Perfect.
reference.
Oh, but Moldova.
Moldova
Yeah,
is
that's where I'm
the priestess or
The Necroprentice.
The Necroprentice.
The Necroprentice. I really like that title.
That's actually
I've
pretty
never
sweet.
heard it before, and it's awesome. A Necroprentice. I love it.
So she's an apprentice of Nybeth. And
Yeah.
she kind of, like, throughout the battle, she's like, oh, Master Nybeth, why aren't you here yet? She was expecting him to,
Yeah.
like, arrive or show up, and he kind of just left her to die. Even in death, I would have served you, she says at the end. But yeah, the main sort of gimmick in this battle is the fact that these undead will come back
Yeah.
if you don't use the exorcism spell. But
And that they can, what is it? That they can be your own. No, maybe not in a battle, but it is hinted later on that once people are undead, they're not who they were. Something like
sure.
that, right? Like these could be your friends, but it's like not anymore. They're not.
right. Okay, and so Leonar, you end up freeing him at the end of this battle here.
Oh, and what's the name? Okay, hold on. I know exactly what. I didn't write it down though. What's the name of the priest? The exorcist?
Donalto?
Donalta. Okay.
Donalto.
Donalto.
Yes.
Very cool character. I actually like him a lot.
Yeah, he's dope. Okay, so Leonar says, thanks to you, Denham, you saved our lives. We came here in pursuit of Nybeth, but the man is as crafty as he is abhorrent. We were ambushed. I left some men in the field. Did you come across any survivors? And this is where they basically tell him they were raised back as undead.
That's
or
it.
whatever,
Yeah,
right?
that's the part.
As I feared, I've lost too many of the Duke's men. I don't know how I shall face him. Denham says, if only we had arrived sooner. Still, I'm grateful we were able to reach you. The Duke is a reasonable man. Surely he knows you share his grief. Leonar says, you speak well, and I'm grateful for your words. But this Nybeth, he's an anathema. Do you know that word?
Anathema.
Anathema.
Yes. It's if something is declared anathema, it is declared like a heresy. Like it's bad. The anathema basically just means bad.
It's actually a pretty dope word.
It's a very good word. Yeah, it's old Latin, I think, or maybe Greek.
He's an anathema to me, and with good in their hearts. How many have lost their lives to satisfy his dark hunger? I failed to take his head, a failure I mean to remedy. Actually, there's two different... so there's two ways this can go. Donalto could die in the battle. I didn't even realize that.
Really? And then forever?
Alicia is dead.
Go ahead, Ivan, what'd you say?
This is actually true of a lot of side characters in this game, a lot of these guests that will join you. If they die in battle, they can just die for the rest of the game and not appear in the scenes that they normally appear. This is true of even Sistina later on. If she died in that battle, she would not appear in later chapters where she would have.
Jeez, we're going to have to really try hard to play the same game. Say that again.
Sorry?
We're just going to have to try hard to make sure we're playing the same game at some point. To make sure nobody dies.
When you're trying not to get your guests killed, you'll get the same thing regardless. I think most people have that Fire Emblem impulse of restarting the level when the character dies.
Yeah.
So I'm not worried about that. I think you're far less likely to see the alternate scenes where people are dead than not.
Okay, but there are a lot of characters who, when they reach 0 HP, they warp stone out of there. What's it called? It's a stone.
Oh, the warp stone from Tactics.
Yeah. Where it's like, how does this work? It's a little bit of a something of a plot device. But yeah, I have a hard time knowing when that's going to happen and when they're just going to die.
That was the same problem in Tactics. It was like, we killed this guy. Nope, he just ran away. We'll see him again later. Okay, so anyways, if Donalto survives the fight, he's in here and reports on the fact that all the soldiers got turned into zombies and stuff. So I didn't take the hint here. I
go back?
Have. Yeah.
I did.
I just realized it now. Like the whole point of this
was to then report back
to get
to the
Leonar, not to kill Nybeth necessarily.
Right.
So I came out of this battle and I was like, the next level is right there. Let's just go in and kill Nybeth. And it's really hard because you're level locked. In this version, they level lock you after a certain point. So you're locked at level 5 here, But Nybeth is level 7, I think, and a lot of the other enemies are level 6 and 7. They're a little bit higher than you.
Yeah.
I'm sure somebody who really understands the mechanics deeply would be able to, do this just fine. But they have the advantage. It's like layers of like a castle that goes higher and higher, and they're like sniping you from up high.
Yes, from way up there.
So they have the high ground, and so they have a huge advantage. And so anyway, I did this fight several times.
Well, if you've ever seen,
need to do it, and I learned very quickly. Oh no, the point was we got Leonard. Just go back, and then you get more equipment that opens up to you later. You level up a little more, and so when I came back again to fight Nybeth later, I was like level 10. I just like caked walked through this.
Wasn't a problem.
Anyway,
jeez,
you do not have to fight Nybeth right now. Do not feel like it is necessary, because it is not at all. You can come back later. It's way easier.
What's great when you go back to
Alamorica
Castle, that you can really see that the Duke, he's scheming, man. Like he's got
hardcore.
He's wheeling and dealing. He's like, all right, we've made an alliance here, but don't worry, we can always stab them in the back later if we don't need them anymore. Like, whoa, buddy, you better hope they're not thinking the same thing about you.
Yeah. Go ahead, Ivan.
And he's a big ask, actually. Like, it's kind of brass balls of him to even ask the heroes to do what he's about to ask them to do, too.
I know.
Like, go meet with your worst enemy and go tell them we're not gonna fight them, and we're actually just gonna do what gonna be.
Well, it begs
but
the
don't
question,
worry, we will fight them still later.
It begs the question: why would he send them at all? He could just send Leonard and Dame Ravnus and Donalta if he wanted to.
Right.
Why does he send them? It's like totally endangering the whole point, which is to make some kind of treaty of neutrality with
these
them.
Teenagers might have some puppy dog eyes that are hard to say no to.
But they don't want them to say yes.
You're right. That's true.
They want to fight them. It just seems like a really weird move for Ronway to make. Like, there's no reason to send them there.
Right.
Actually, there is no reason. They would literally, the only thing it would do was risk Vice, who ends up being the only one who doesn't say anything.
Which is so funny.
Which just blew me away. It's like, of all people, who's going to be like, no, I can't stand this. I have to kill him now. He doesn't say a thing.
Yeah.
It's Cachua and Denim who you can choose.
Depending on how you choose, yeah.
That's a bit ahead. I did want to bring up. Are you guys I mentioned the War Report earlier, but you're watching the talk section, right?
The talk section?
Yeah, there's tidings, characters, and then the talk, which is like rumors and ongoing events.
I don't think I've been into there yet. No.
You should be doing that, and I'm going from now on.
Good to know.
Every time you have a major event or a battle, just check it periodically all the time. Because a lot of quests will be locked behind reading these events. And it's telling you a lot about what the context of what's going on right now. So I actually wrote down the War Report events or talk for these sections of the game.
Okay.
Oh, good.
This has bearing on Sistina, who we're about to meet. So War Report, this is right at the beginning of the game. These are the first few you get. Anniversary celebrations. Bakram celebrates the 2nd anniversary of founding. Celebrations in the capital, and they're repairing the Hanging Gardens. Hanging Gardens will come up at the very end of the game. 5 perished during procession. Dark Knight procession is ambushed. No casualties among them, but there are 5 onlookers killed, 21 injured, unknown who instigated the attack. So it's like
there are other rebels at work than just us.
The Dark Knights just killed 5 people, injured 21. None of them got harmed, but they were the ones ambushed. And we have Zenobia on the march. So, a lot of people have noticed that the Zenobians showed up. There's fears of Zenobia sending scouts coming for invasion, for a coming invasion. People are watching
Wait, hold on.
Yeah.
That's the mercenaries.
Yeah, they're from New Zenobia.
I know, but that gossip just tells us that they're actually scouts that are looking at the place to figure out for an invasion.
Well, that's what
that
the
it
speculation
spoils that is
yeah.
what you're saying?
No, it doesn't spoil it if it's presented. It's part of the game. We just missed it because we didn't pause and go listen to it.
Yeah, you should be doing that because it's telling you a lot about how the world around you sees events that are going on right now. Not necessarily the ones you're involved in, but also the ones you're involved in. It'll tell you, like, what people are talking about, essentially. Then, Almorica Falls, party captured the castle, freed the Duke, Galgastan's retreated from the region. I summarized these. They're not, like, specific, but, a report of resistance partisans no older than 20 defeated the occupying forces and are now hailed as heroes. So, like, how much truth is there in these reports? And but you should be reading them and asking yourself, like, what are they adding to the context? It gets updated as the story goes on. So after taking Crisero, you get Resistance takes Crisero. People are returning to town. Center of worship for the followers of Esk. It's another minority religion. But, like, people are finally returning to town after what you did. Bloody purges in Caritine. Opponents of the Galgastani regime in Caritine held a large rally. Caritine is the capital of Galgastan. Upon hearing the fall of Almorica, the Hierophant who rules Galgastan is unpopular with Galgastani, not afraid to use force to ensure loyalty. Procession attackers named. Earlier attack on the Dark Knights blamed on the Liberation Front, a background militant group, and Count Abdelard missing. This is Nibeth, and nobody knows where he is now.
Right.
Nice.
Dang, that's cool because that actually gives you some hints of the political situation around here. Yeah. Where it's like, what is it? You said the Dark Knights got attacked, but they didn't get hurt in this attack, but they killed a bunch of people, but they're fine. Sounds like maybe they are just pretending that they got attacked so that they could just attack other people, right? Something of a false flag is I think what people say nowadays. Or the fact that citizens are rising up, or all these different tensions. It's kind of cluing you into some things that are going to happen later on in the game, right? Where it's like, hey, governments lie, soldiers turn on soldiers, people go missing, civilians die and get blamed for dying, and this is the world we live in, right? Yeah. And especially knowing with what you had mentioned before, Ivan, about how Matsuno was a reporter. He was like a journalist who studied foreign affairs and whatnot. Like the fact that he's using this to help construct this world, and especially as a journalist, that doesn't mean that everything they write is true. But it's like this is what is being reported in the world, and very interesting stuff. I think it's very cool. So you can maybe glean some hints and foreshadowings from all of this.
Yeah, going forward, I really strongly suggest that every time you're a couple of scenes in, check your talk section, because there's going to be a lot of good stuff in there. Cool. And some of it's gameplay related, but a lot of it is just like good story development that's giving you a lot of context about that you might not necessarily see through the eyes of Denim.
Okay,
great.
All right, good stuff.
Okay, so I've got here, Vice doesn't want to bend the knee to Lotus and Bakram, but the Dark Knights are too great a foe. The Duke is super political, making alliances, planning betrayals. It isn't pretty, but this is how things get done, or this is how things are kept from getting done.
Right.
So now we're at the Golborza Plains. I love Matsuno's names, by the way, the names for things. Golborza. It just reminds me of, was it Galbez, or what was the...
Golbez.
Golbez. Okay, so it's close enough. Golborza. I love it. Apparently it's maybe Old Germanic, maybe Old English type names.
Is this the battle where we meet Sistina or whatever?
Brezin?
No, it's the one right before it.
No, it's a little bit later, but then... Okay, and then Sistina's the next one.
Do you have any notes for this battle? I didn't really take anything down. This guy Brezin, I'm sure, has some... Is it Brezin?
Yeah, Brezin. B-R-E-Z.
Yeah, does he have any interesting background, Ivan?
He's a former gladiator. He's actually known as the sword fighter Brezin, even though he uses an axe because he preferred using swords in the arena or something. But I thought the interaction with him, like killing the subordinate who says, "Hey, maybe we should retreat," just a good demonstration of how low the morale among the Galgastani is.
Oh, that's
right. I remember that.
Yeah, I really liked that part, actually. His dialogue with the guy was like, there's no place for cowards.
That's right.
I'd rather fall into my grave than, run back and fall in with the file, I think. Well, he has some good dialogue back and forth with Denham as well about, or you need to be more present, like live in the moment. You young people are always thinking of the future. Would you think I'm not prepared for death then? No, I'm not that young,
That's
it's
right.
good. It's
That's right,
good,
yeah.
Quips back and forth. I thought it was pretty interesting.
I thought the line in the original script which the soldier says was so funny. I always remember it. They have bigger swords than us. We have to go.
Nice. That's wonderful.
That's an improvement, I would say. That's funny though. But it's the next battle where we meet Sistina, right?
Sistina.
So they kind of come upon this woman who's in a conflict with some of the Galgastani soldiers. She's talking about, fighting for freedom and that sort of thing. And you get a choice here whether you want to try and save her or just like, oh, she's not our concern kind of thing. And this will change some of the dialogue at the end of the battle.
Oh, that makes sense. Yeah.
It's changed a little bit. I think you get a second choice if you choose to try to save her. So if you say, yes, let's go after her, then in the conversation after the battle,
it's very
she
interesting.
opens up a question for which you get another choice. If you don't try to save her, I don't think you get that choice.
That's correct.
But it more or less ends the same way. Now, we talked in the development history episode about how this game is centered on conflicts and how conflicts resolve, these sort of world conflicts, that sort of thing. This was the first cutscene in the game where I started to see maybe the beginnings of those seeds being planted. I liked this conversation between Sistina and our characters. So I want to kind of read through all of it and kind of dissect it line by line. So I'm going to go based on the first choice where you get more dialogue options with her, where you said, we can't let her die.
You purposely save her and then... Okay.
Right. The first thing that Denham says, Vice. Okay, sorry. Well, I'll start with Denham. But the first thing Vice says just made me roll my eyes. Without your aid, she says, I would never have escaped with my life. Thank you. I am Sistina, a warrior of the Liberation Front. I was scouting the Galgastani in preparation for a raid on their stores when they spotted me. And Vice says, Liberation Front, partisan zealots, the lot of them, nothing but trouble. He has literally zero tact. He has no ability whatsoever.
It's like, or do we have similar goals? Can we forge a temporary alliance? Can we help each other out? No, either you're 100% on his side or you are completely his enemy.
He's the most tribal character.
But his tribe is so small, he has no hope, right? He's a tribe of 3 people. Yeah. And it's this is our tribe. And if you're not on our side, then we're going to kill you. But you don't have any power, man. Yeah. You've got to make friends somehow.
So, go ahead, Ivan.
This is the Liberation Front that she's part of is actually mentioned in these talk section.
Oh, good.
These were the guys who were just blamed on the attack on the Dark Knights. Oh,
so a bunch of them just died.
That ambush. Yeah, where a bunch of people died and no Dark Knights were injured.
Yeah, a bunch of them died. Yeah.
So this was kind of foreshadowed a bit, but it's also this is kind of I think it's supposed to communicate that this is what people are talking about right now, and so the propaganda of them being particularly egregious terrorists, I think is
so
it's regurgitating it.
Yeah, Vice is regurgitating the hearsay, which is mostly informed by
Branton.
Yeah, it's almost like information was planted for the people to say certain things.
This is actually in service of their current mission, where they kind of have to be opposed to the Valeria Liberation Front because they are fighting the Dark Knights that they are trying to make peace with. So it's almost like Vice might actually be kind of onto something here.
So they're trying to make peace, but it's like these people keep screwing it up. That actually happens all over in the world. That's crazy. Yeah. Wow. So the people who are more tactful are being undermined by these smaller groups that are trying to. But then the people who are being tactful and diplomatic and have power, they've got their own ambitions as well that don't care about these lower people. So the lower people are taking things into their own hands, but it's screwing up the plans for the higher people. There's just a huge disconnect there. And I think it stems from the fact that the people at the bottom don't trust that these people at the top have their best interests at heart. So a diplomacy would actually be no better for them.
Would it be fair to say that this is by far the most sort of politically complex plot for a Super Nintendo game that exists?
So far, yes. Absolutely.
I would say so, and I played a lot of the Fire Emblems for the Super Nintendo, which even Fire Emblem 4 and 5 don't get this level.
I know. It's crazy.
Oh, what?
It's really, really crazy.
Civ, though. Civilization was technically on the SNES.
But I don't know if those has stories.
Civ 1, no, it wasn't a story, but it did have all that political stuff.
That's true.
Nuclear Gandhi.
Exactly. Nuclear Gandhi, the meme.
Okay, so Kachua responds to this. I always thought us two sides of the same coin. Leonard then explains she's a Bakram traditionalist, a group loyal to the late King Dorgalua, who was the dynast king we had talked about, who had united Valeria at one time. So they're still wanting to bring back that dynasty, right? Ketra says, I've heard of them. Not all Bakrams support the current regime after all. This is also true in Galgastan. This is the whole reason why the Duke wants to make this treaty with the Knights, because he doesn't want it to look like they're seeking foreign aid to attack Galgastan, so that the people who are opposed to the current king of Galgastan, is he a king or is, what would you call him?
Leader?
Branton?
No, the leader of Galgastan.
Is it a king or is it a...
Oh, they're both regents. It's kind of like
Regent.
Final Fantasy Tactics. He's the Hierophant, and the other one is...
that's right.
They're both clergymen,
isn't it
but they're regents
Orlando's son that the current regent of Galgastan is sort of like using...
Yes.
Yeah, okay. Okay, so there are a lot of people in Galgastan who are opposed to the current regent. So what Duke Ronway wants to do is to get them to revolt against him too.
That's right. So the people of each side are being played by the leaders of the opposite side and trying to get to rise up against to overthrow their own. That's so complex. I just love it. That's crazy. I just love it. I never expect something like this in a game like this.
In order to get these Galgastani people who are opposed to the regent on their side, he does not want to seek the aid of a foreign power like Bakram or Lotus or something like that.
Okay.
So he just wants to make sure you're not going to attack our flank while we're fighting Galgastan, but we don't want you involved either. We don't need your help. That's basically what they're sent here to do. So Cecina brings up what you had been talking about. You have us wrong. These are lies spread by Branton. We seek only a return to better times when a man's race and beliefs could not discredit him.
So she's a reactionary. Very interesting.
Yeah. Vice says, better times? Don't make me laugh. Good enough for those of you who with luck to be born in Bakram. But we lied then as we do now, insects beneath the boots of our betters.
So Wallister fared no different
under
either regime, so it doesn't matter.
No, exactly. Sistina says, I see. Then tell me, why is it that you fight? So you get two options here. To secure a future for the Wallister, or basically for peace. I think it's more interesting to choose the first, to secure a future for the Wallister.
Sure.
That seems to be the position that these characters are in.
That they would say, yeah.
Based on what Vice was just talking about, the Wallister have been oppressed for so long. Right. At this point, it's just like, we want our own state. Like, basically at any cost. Like, we're sick of this. Like, we've been mistreated, oppressed, stamped on. You, Bakram, have lived it up while we've lived this way.
Yeah.
We're done with this. We're not making peace. We are taking what's ours now.
Yeah.
So even having Denim say this makes sense to me based on
Sure.
the Wallister plight.
Well, it's very practical.
Yeah.
It's less ideological.
So that's the one I went with. And Denim says, we must build a country of our own if people are to have any future. And here's the reason why I really like this option, because of Sistina's response. Your words echo Branton's own. You speak of your country, your people, but you care only for yourselves. You refuse compromise, turn your back on cooperation. What selfish creatures. There is no better description, I feel like, of Vice than that.
I agree. I was thinking of Vice the whole time.
Refuse
Yeah.
compromise, turn your back on cooperation.
Yep.
Like, just spit in the face of it. And those are all things that you really need to do.
Yes. It might help for some context to state that Vice is 17 years old.
Yeah, he's young.
So, I don't know exactly how I was when I was 17. You could probably tell me better than I could tell myself, because I don't know exactly how other people saw me. But, late teenage years, you get a hot head, and you can definitely be like that. Very uncompromising.
I think you've got it figured out.
I know what
I
to
should
do.
know-
Everyone should just do what I think. I'm right. Shut up. Go away.
Yeah.
Shut up, Mom.
The characters were actually aged up in the PSP and
Oh, are
original
they?
versions. Denim
Really?
and Vice were both 16 in the original Super Nintendo version.
Ooh, very interesting.
So they've been aged up. What,
So now
1
they're
year?
17 and 19. I think Kachu was 19.
They're both 18 now, and Kacha was
okay.
19. They used to be 16 and Kacha was 18. Although in that version,
why they did
birthdays
that.
actually progress through the game, and this one it doesn't for some reason.
Oh, you were
Vice's
telling us
birthday
that.
is relatively early in the year, and so is Denim's. Denim's is January 1st, so when you start the
Oh,
game, you could
nice.
actually turn 17.
Ooh,
and
there's
Vice
some
turns
symbolism
17
there.
shortly after.
Very cool.
Yeah, that takes a little bit of the sim aspect out of it to not
Yeah.
have the time moving and their birthdays going up.
I don't know why they
Right.
did that.
That's weird.
Well,
Good choice.
because theoretically, in the Super Nintendo version, your characters could get up to like 80 years old if you just keep
Yeah.
playing battles over and over, right? Okay, maybe that's why. I don't know.
Nintendo 64, where you got rewards for birthdays, a lot of players would just walk until they got the 99th birthday because it unlocked a lot of early game buffs really fast, and then just continue playing the game with all that stuff unlocked.
Yeah, I would
Classic,
assume that's probably the
classic.
reason why then.
Probably there's a bit of a flaw there, a bit of a break.
They need to put some kind of cutoff point in the time passing before the end of a chapter or something.
Yeah.
Like you can't go past this date
Yeah.
or something like that. That would
The
have been
enemy-
better
then the enemy
than
finds
taking it
you.
out
The game does
altogether.
keep track. There is a number of campaigns, days that your campaign's been going on that runs through the entire game. So I
you
feel
could
like
just
they
do the
should have
math
just
yourself.
implemented it.
Yeah.
But
Yeah, they should, I guess.
they didn't.
Anyway, Leonard lets her go at the end of this, tells Vice to shut up, and says, you're free to go, but you're not welcome here. We don't want the Bakram, messing with what we're doing. Get out of here. She's like, all right. I'm feeling we're going to see her later. Any other notes you guys have about this scene before moving on?
No, just in general. What does
I
she
do have
say
some.
here? Sistina says that only by their people are they to have any future. Oh, that's it. Denim says they must build a country if they're going to have any future. But Sistina says that only by putting aside vain desires can we usher in an era of true peace.
Yeah.
Now, I question, as we learn maybe a little bit later on, Valeria is a small place. It is not, it seems like the world right now. And it's like, oh, if Valeria was all at peace, then things would be great. But there are powers way beyond Valeria that Sistina has no chance of, well, okay, we'll see where this game goes. But let's just say that even if Valeria became unified, they're just like a vassal state of a larger empire. Like they are not, by no means would they be just like free.
That at least seems to be what Branton is maybe accidentally setting up with seeking the help of the Lotus Knights, but
It's like, okay, you're just picking your new master, I guess. But
yeah, pretty much.
And then Lancelot Tartaros. That's where I'm at this next part.
Yeah. So we make it to Fidok Castle.
Yeah.
I really liked this choice. I felt like this scene could have maybe gone a little bit further with the shock when Lancelot walks in.
Because at first it's like, we're there, we're going to secure some little deal because the Duke wants us to. But, wait, he's here? Oh, really? Oh, he's here? And it's like this crazy thing. And at first I'm like, okay, I couldn't really remember exactly. We're going to come face to face with this person.
Yes.
Like, oh my gosh, this is going to be crazy. And my worry the whole time was, Vice is not going to take this well. Vice is going to be pissed. What am I going to do about Vice? Oh, how are we going to control Vice? What's going to happen? And it turns out, Vice is cool. He's just chilling.
Vice doesn't say anything.
Yeah.
It was shocked me.
Very uncharacteristic of him. But yeah, he just chills. Lets us do the talking.
I couldn't believe it.
Leaves the whole negotiation in and Kachua's hands.
Feel like you have something to say there, Ivan.
We're going to see some interactions between Vice and the Dark Knights in the chaotic route.
Great.
That are going to be really, really funny in retrospect.
Okay. But at the very least, One-Eyed Lance, what was your impression of him after we actually got to speak with him?
Well, yeah, he just came across as just kind of a impassive, cold knight who's more concerned about duty than the people he's killed and whatnot. Yeah,
kind of common in my opinion. I was expecting maybe a little more overtly evil.
Sure.
And I got someone who was like, he didn't feign ignorance. He addressed the issues straight on. He even gave a reason for why everything happened. Apparently, there was some false intel, which is the reason why they burnt that whole city in Wallister down, which is a heck of a thing to do based on a false intel.
Now, I want to say I don't believe him.
Sure. but don't believe anyone in this game. It sounds like we got to talk about the story. So One-Eyed Lance says that he was blind to the truth. And so he turned a blind eye. That's how you put it. He turned a blind eye. Anyway, so he went and burned down the whole city because the intel told him to. Found out later that the intel was wrong. He offers us an apology. It didn't seem super sincere, but I was shocked he gave one at all.
Yeah.
He said, I don't know if he said I'm sorry necessarily, but he did feel some sort of remorse and, you were there. Oh, well, such as it is, that was a mistake, and please accept my apology. I can't remember the exact wording, but it was something like that. And
but that apology, well, not the apology, but the explanation he gives.
Yeah. Like, I was just doing my job. Wasn't my fault.
It was not satisfactory because they say it doesn't make any sense.
No.
Because he says there was false intel. We shouldn't have done it. It was a mistake.
Yes.
So
which is what I would say too, face to face.
The first question should have been, then why did you take my dad and why haven't you given him back?
Oh, dang, you're right.
Where is my dad? If it was a mistake, then where the fetch is my dad?
I forgot that they even took his dad because it hasn't really been brought up ever since that.
I'm shocked they didn't say it.
Yeah.
Wait, where did he go if it was a mistake?
This was all a mistake. Oh, well, yeah, where's... Yeah, good question. Good question.
That's what I was thinking the whole time. I'm like, Denim. I mean, I guess the choice that I made in the scene was to tell Kachua not now. So if you go that route, it makes more sense for them to be like, we'll just not deal with this right now.
Sure.
But if you went the other way and Denim goes off about, we can't make a treaty with this person. We're your sworn enemy and all this stuff. And Leonard's just like, oh my gosh, dude, are you crazy? Stop talking. Stop talking right now. But in that route, I would have expected them to ask about their father, and they kind of just don't do it.
They kind of just don't.
Yeah. I can see you have some things to say there, Ivan.
It's like they were it's when they asked that question, Dark Knights were clearly not prepared whatsoever to talk about what they were doing in that town a year ago.
Nope, because this was all
the answer they gave is so on its face nonsensical that it must have been them making it up on the spot.
Yeah.
It's like elements of what resistance?
Yeah.
The Liberation Front, the Wallister Resistance, which you're not even fighting.
Yeah.
If you
Interesting.
ask any surface level question about what they're saying, it just would be revealed that it's a complete lie. And Leonard is so obviously focused on the fact that this is not the thing to be on about that he ends the conversation right there, because if it didn't, they would literally just die.
Yeah.
Yes, they
Yeah.
would.
They were barking up the wrong tree, and Leonard had to shut it down.
But it's just shocking that it was Denim and Kachua and not
Vice.
not
Yeah.
Vice at all.
That was crazy.
He was very diplomatic and very tactical.
By not
He
saying
was
anything at all.
the only one. Yeah. I don't know.
Yes.
Maybe he was tired. Maybe he had a headache. Maybe he was like not feeling good, and
Well,
maybe his
he was
tongue. He
actually,
bit his
like,
tongue,
doing
and he
what-
didn't want to talk.
Maybe he has actually focused on this Wallister thing, where he's actually interested in the political end that he's there to perform.
Sure.
Yeah.
Oh, in that case,
Maybe
he
he's actually
actually.
believes what Cromwell's doing. That's the other interpretation.
Okay, but at the very least, he does have some inkling of what it would be good for Wallister, if we want to give him that generous.
Yeah, I mean, you go
generosity.
back, and Ronway, of course, is saying like, "Thank you for setting aside your personal
Hold on,
vendetta."
before-
Hold on, I'm gonna
before-
go back to it. I'm gonna go back to
Oh,
it.
okay.
But I'm just saying that, building on the point you were just making, that he's like, "Thank you for setting aside your own vendetta for the good of Wallace or whatever."
Right. Yeah.
So maybe that's what was in Vice's mind, but I find that hard to believe based on how he was the one setting the ambush for Lancelot. He was
Right,
insisting on
yeah.
it. Cachua was the one being like, "We can't kill Lancelot.
Right.
That's crazy. What are you doing?" and anyway, but the end of this scene, I have to say, I got a really, really good laugh out of this line. I thought
Yeah.
it was very funny. Obviously, they're setting up a mystery for something. Who's this other character? He starts with a B.
Balsaphon.
Baxophon?
Balsaphon.
Balsaphon?
That's a great name right there.
Yeah. So,
It used to be Balsapho, but they added an N.
Okay.
Balsaphon, right? What is he? Is he just like the general of this fort or whatever?
He's the second in command.
Second command to
Ooh,
Brandon.
okay.
Branton.
Well, Tartaros.
Oh,
Oh, to Lance.
wait.
Ooh. He's second in
So
command to
he's
Lance.
one of the Knights of Lotus.
He's very high ranking within Lotus itself. He's but here he's basically just the right hand man of Tartaros.
Okay.
Okay.
Anyway, he says something like, "Was that entirely necessary?" And Lancelot says, "You recall Hobrim? I think his name is Hobirim." And he's
Oberon.
like, "My brother."
You mean my bro?
I laughed
My
out
brother?
loud.
Do
This
I?
would be like me turning to Case Man like, "Hey, dude, you remember Parker?"
My brother?
"Yes, dude, I remember my freaking brother."
Well, hold on. Let me offer an explanation.
Okay.
You know how there's two Lancelots, right? He was just asking for clarification. There are many Hobises around, maybe, and he was like, "Oh, the brother one or the other one?"
Oh gosh.
There you go. That's what I got.
I actually, now that you say that, maybe that could be. It's like, oh, you mean the Hobrim that's my like my Hobrim? People will
Right.
say this sometimes.
Yeah.
You talking about my person, or are you talking
Well,
about
in
this
Japanese
other-
especially, yeah, but yeah.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Uchi no.
I think it's just spelling out to you who this character is in relation to the other one, because when Oberon meets you later,
I
he's
know.
relying on you not having heard this interaction.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's
I'm kind of
clearly
surprised.
expository.
It's-
They're trying
it's
to
for
teach
the
you.
sake of the audience.
Yes, but it comes across really funny.
Yes,
when they
and
do
this
it like
is
this.
this would be classified in the same realm as you know type dialogue.
As you know, Hobis is my brother.
Yeah.
I'll continue.
Father, you mean
Yeah,
my
it's
dad?
dialogue for the sake of the audience. It's not
Yeah.
necessarily natural, but it just came across really funny to me.
That is
Like,
pretty
do you remember this guy? Like, yeah, dude, it's my brother. Of course, I remember my brother. Anyways,
I suppose the funnier part there is the fact that he's even asking him at all.
Yeah.
Like, oh, you remember Hobis. Like, the fact that you're even asking him. Is
but
very
the
good.
Take note of that.
mystery you're supposed to take from this is when Lancelot says, Because he asks him why he asked that question. He says, "Oh, it's nothing. Only the brother and sister just now put me in mind of him and you." So,
ooh, very good.
Balsaphon has some brother out there somewhere that reminds Lancelot of Denham and Cachua for some reason.
Which means maybe Balsaphon needs to die. Maybe that's foreshadowing. Balsaphon's going to die. Or it's foreshadowing that maybe they're... one of the thoughts that I have, especially as we meet Lancelot, and he's not as just like horrifically evil as I thought, and he kind of is just like... He's just doing his work. We're killing... I don't know how many people we've killed up to this point. Like, how many of them are going to get revenge on us later on, and we're like, oh yeah, I remember that battle. Yeah, I think we were, like, trying to, like, save Sistina, but, like, I don't know, I just killed your father, I guess. Oh, sorry. Like, that's kind of what it seems like for Lancelot when he's talking to us. Yeah. He's like, yeah, we did the thing, and we killed some people. I did some things, you did some things, you know. But instead, it actually made me think that maybe Lancelot isn't such a horrific bad guy. And then the next scene with the Duke makes me think that maybe the Duke isn't as good as we thought as well. And so I start thinking maybe, and then he's referring to, there's another Denham Cachua kind of like type couple. That sounds weird for brother and sister, but duo. We'll say duo. Sure. Is that better? That is like, well, maybe they're actually like the good guys, and we're kind of helping further a negative thing here. Do
you know what else might throw a wrench and confuse some more?
I can't wait.
Lancelot is the Tartaros. Lancelot is the protagonist of the Tactics, or is it Ogre Battle Knights of Lotus
Ogre, Knight
game?
Of Lotus.
Say it again, Ivan.
It's Tactics Ogre Knight of Lotus on the Game Boy Advance.
Yes.
Oh, I'm not aware of that game.
So the Tactics Ogre game on Game Boy Advance, he was like the protagonist of that game. So there's that to consider.
Very interesting. Well, I may have hit on something there. Let's put a bookmark there, and we'll talk about it later on if something comes up.
It's like a prequel. It tells about when he was younger and sort of like came up through the ranks or whatever.
Oh, very
is that a good game, Ivan? Is that a game worth playing?
I think so. Yeah, but it is a Game Boy Advance game, so it's quite a bit more simplified, and the story is a lot closer to. It's a lot more. It's just a lot more straightforward and simple. But it is a good game. It is a good game, and there's definitely stuff there that's worth exploring.
Okay, I'll keep that in mind for the future.
My next note here is about Nybeth.
Oh, so you
have anything else? Yeah, I did.
Yeah, he's kind of interesting guy. He's just doing his research. He's obsessed with his research.
Every game has a character like this. Just this unethical scientist that's just all he wants to do is do his research. And it doesn't really care who's paying or who it's for or why. Or Final Fantasy VIII has a character basically like this. It's just like, I'm just doing this thing. I'm doing my thing. I don't care what the government's doing or how they're using my research. I'm going to keep doing it because it's my life's purpose, you know? Yeah. Nybeth is like that, and he kind of thinks that we're kind of crazy for even having a problem with what he's doing. Yeah. He's like, your world gives only death, but mine could give a promise of new life and all that good stuff, right? But the thing I love is at the very end of the battle, he warps out, or no, he flies out
into like a
raven or something. He just flies away, which he could have done a long time before that, but that's fine. We get this fairly typical atheist versus theist kind of like little debate there.
Yeah.
It's so funny. I can't remember the specifics, but it was basically like, it's unethical to do it. And he's like, but I'm the only one who does anything, and your little ethics system is kind of garbage. And it's just like a typical, like low-level atheist-theist debate.
He doesn't believe in the gods. He only believes in science. Even though
science.
There are gods very clearly in this universe.
There are. So he's quite wrong here. But you still get the typical.
Too.
What?
He's kind of like Fabius Bile in 40K, where he's like, I work with chaos demons, but they're just like a product of science. Whatever.
Okay, yeah, it's basically what Nybeth is saying. He's like, it's all material. It's a very materialistic kind of worldview. Though I do have to say, undoubtedly, Nybeth's opinion on this front here is what permits him to continue exploring his morbid curiosities in the debate there, right? Ethics would just hold him down, and he's too brilliant a man to be held down. So he's got to take off the handcuffs.
his time is too important to even be used in fighting you.
Yet he
It's
waits.
like, I detest inefficiency.
That's right. He waits until the battle's over to turn into a raven and fly away, which he could have done anyways the whole time, I think.
You need a battle.
Unless,
You need
hold
a
on,
battle
how much
fight.
MP? Hold on, how much MP do you need to turn into a raven and fly
That's
away?
actually a good point.
It could have been the whole time. He was
That's
like
a good point.
building up MP until you get, 200 MP, and then it's like, hey, now you can do it.
Yeah, that was one of the mechanics of this game that I've been kind of the most pleasantly surprised with.
I thought
is
it wouldn't
how
be good
MP
at
is
first.
used.
I was
Yeah.
like, what, 0 MP at the beginning? Why? But as the game goes, it actually gives me, it kind of hints to me a little bit of this concept of a mage building a spell.
Yeah.
Right? Like it takes energy to build a spell. You can't just like do a spell all the time. You've got to gather
Draw
the
it.
energy.
You have to
and
draw
yeah,
it
you have to draw
first.
it. You have to think it up. You have to like say the words, you've got to like feel the energy and like then channel it, It's not something you can do on a whim at all at any time. And so one of the coolest lines from the Book of the Hobbit is right before the Battle of Five Armies, or maybe even during it. Bilbo is standing next to Gandalf and is wondering, because Gandalf is just muttering to himself, looking over the battlefield, and Bilbo's like, I wonder what powerful new spell he's brewing right now. And it's like just the idea that Gandalf could spend hours just like on one spell is so cool to me. That, and then when something like the system in this game where you start up with 0 MP and you've got to just slowly build it up and it gets more powerful, the more MP you have, the more stuff you can do. And it's as though the wizard was working on it that whole time, all the way up until it finally gets cast. It's an idea that really appeals to me. And I know it's not as quick and snappy, but I really like it, especially that way you're not using this high-level magic right off at the very beginning to just kill everyone right away, right? Your mages need to act. It's a process of casting magic. It's not just a Harry Potter, I say the words and the magic happens and you don't have to do anything, right? It's just, you just say it and it does it. Like Avada Kedavra, you're dead. Boom, done. That's it. I didn't have to spend hours brewing this like potion or this spell that would then do it for me.
Yeah, I kind of like it as a concept of you're drawing energy from something into yourself, then using it.
For a purpose, though.
Yeah.
Because you would say, why doesn't the wizard just draw it and then just hold it in until the battle happens and then he can do it? But that would eat at you, right? Often the way magic works is like these are evil spirits that you're commanding or that you're like drawing energy from, or it's just the spirits of the earth. You can't just like hold it in your body all the time. Like it's going to take you over. Like you've got to gather it together and then give it a thing to do.
Yeah. Yeah, I've kind of liked that system, though. It takes a couple rounds before you're ready to actually use your spells. And
It's
you can
fun.
very quickly drain it again, and then you have to go a couple more turns. I like how the enemies in a lot of these battles, they'll kind of start with that consumable item. I forget what it's called, where they'll...
Magi leave.
Yeah,
Leaf,
magic, the magic leaf, where they'll just cast that right away. It's like, oh, that's a good idea. I should be doing that.
I should be doing that.
Don't waste yours. You can't buy them at the store.
Oh, you can't? Oh, okay.
Yeah,
So you'll have a limited number.
Okay, that changes things then. I thought maybe I just missed that at the store, but okay. Anyway, it's a cool system. I like it.
That's good stuff. Okay, then we go to
So-
Balmamusa, which is another really good word.
Yeah, so we
Love
should
it.
probably mention that Ronway basically says, sorry, I know that you've been running around doing stuff. You probably need some
Yeah.
rest, but I need you to go here like right away. This place, Balmamusa?
Balmamusa.
Balmamusa.
Love it.
This is like essentially a camp that was given to the Wallister for a place to live, but it, in reality, just turned out to be more like a concentration camp.
In the original translation, they actually used the words concentration camp to refer to it.
Oh, really?
Got it. That's essentially what it sounds like by their description. They're slaves there. They're working, doing, menial work, hard labor for the betterment of really Galgastan.
And it was something, is there, I could be wrong on this. It was like 500 or
5,000.
5,000 of them? Okay.
5,000
So
people.
a whole ton of people. Okay.
Yeah, a lot. And so the idea here is get these people to revolt.
Yeah.
And Vice's first reaction to that idea is, ooh, an army 5,000 strong, ours for the
Yeah.
taking.
Right.
So basically you're supposed to go there, rile these people up to revolt.
Now, first off, Vice was wrong in his supposition to begin with, because when you get there and see these people, they're old men and women. They're not exactly.
They're not in fighting shape.
It's not this great 5,000 strong army that he was envisioning. It's more like in the Two Towers with the Battle of Helm's Deep, when Legolas is like stable boys and like these are no warriors, right?
No, they're not.
These people are in no shape to fight.
Yeah, so
and have no will to fight.
Right before that scene ends, when our characters leave the room, you get Runway talking to Leonard a little bit and being like, I'm counting on you, like, don't mess this up kind of thing. He's like, don't worry, like, I've got it. So there's something that he says something like our plot or our plan is going apace.
It's going apace.
It's on schedule.
So this is the craziest thing, because we're talking to the Duke, we leave, then the Duke talks to Leonard without us there. So it's important to understand it in that context, I think, that these are words he did not say when we were around.
Yes.
So we are not privy to this plan.
Yes.
We are being used in this plan. We are 100%. Not. Yeah. And so likely whenever this happens, if you ever leave a room with powerful people and then as soon as you leave, the doors shut and they say, everything's going according to plan, you're probably not good. You're good. You're probably going to die soon. So
it's not a good thing.
Just watch your back a little bit. Not that you'll know if they ever say it, but if you're ever in that position, a little bit of advice.
Yeah, so when you get to the camp, you start talking to the people, they don't want to fight. They've accepted their situation. They're at least like we get to eat now.
Yes, we have food and shelter. That's
it's better than it was before when there was war.
And Nietzsche would call that the slave mentality, right?
Yeah, go ahead, Ivan.
Just want to loop back a little bit. Right before the Battle of Musa fight, you meet the Beast Tamer Gamp.
Oh, right.
Just take note of him because you're going to meet him again several times.
Oh, I think I remember
and
him.
He might have some of the hardest fights in the game.
Oh, really?
Ooh,
we can meet him
great.
next time.
Yeah.
Great.
Yeah, he was tough. I remember this was when I had decided to go back and do the Nibeth fight because I had gotten up to here and I was again a level or two below.
So you went back.
So I went back, fought Nibeth. I trained in a couple times and then came back and did this because it was tough. It wasn't easy though. I was trying to rush just to get to him.
Yeah, because that's the objective.
That's the win state.
Yeah. But he keeps bringing up more undead.
But those those beasts, those like griffin lion things.
Yeah, the griffins, yeah.
They're tough. They're not easy.
But with Nibeth, right, where he's up.
Oh, yeah,
right?
he keeps sucking.
I do want to compare those two fights, too, because the Zodo...
Well, but hold on, real quick.
Yeah.
Have you never watched Star Wars Episode 3? He had the high ground. The battle was over before it even started, man.
Yeah.
Like, you lost.
You
just
can't
leave.
do it.
Don't even try.
Not even Darth Vader.
Okay, Ivan, what you got?
I just wanted to, the elevation in Quadriga is, so crazy to go very steep hill, but Zodo Marsh is, very flat, but at the same time, it's a really difficult terrain to navigate.
Yes.
I just thought the design of these levels is very interesting because you would look at it, it looks like a flat field. It would be like a boring place to fight, but it turns out to be very complicated.
It is.
Next time you go through it, maybe recruit some octopi, and then you'll see the difference of how good having a stepping stone in your army is.
Very good.
Because the first time I did the fight, I had moved some of my other units forward, and I basically trapped Denham, who I wanted to get up there to fight him, but he couldn't advance.
Yeah.
And so I was like, man, I need to reposition their starting points and make sure I don't put anybody in the way so that he can get through. Because he's a little slower in my party. He comes about halfway through the turn order in battles. There's a lot of characters that go before him. So I need to keep that in account.
It also doesn't help that every city in this game is freaking Venice and has 10 rivers flowing through the middle of it. Every house has its own little river, and you're constantly having to go around things and traverse bridges and everything. It's wild.
Yeah.
There's actually very good utility in recruiting monster type units like golems or octopi that can stand in water or griffins because they give you so many more ability options for other units in your army.
Nice.
Mess around with those recruit skills when you see enemy monsters. You can get a lot of advantage from having them around. I think
You know-
the Beastmaster fight with Gamp, I think, is supposed to demonstrate that for you.
I've tried a couple of recruit skills, but they've missed every time. I assumed it was
you're
only
gonna need
going
to
to be for the duration of the battle, but you're saying they join your army permanently.
Yes.
Oh, okay. That's cool.
Yeah, it's so worth it. You have to use the chariot system because I think it never goes up over like 35%. But you have to be adjacent to them when you use the persuade skills, and keep them at low HP, and they'll usually join. You can check their loyalty by clicking like select on their name, and it'll read you a little message, and it'll tell you how happy they are. If they're unhappy, that makes them easier to recruit.
Okay.
Very nice.
Very cool. Okay. So Balamusa.
Balmamusa.
Balmamusa.
It'll come up a lot.
You get there. These people are not willing to fight.
Yep.
Lanark, well, again, Vice. Okay, this is where I'm going to start complaining about Vice. Are you daft? We didn't come all this way to listen to you spout nonsense. We are not the enemy. Or are you so taken with your Galgastani masters that you have forgotten? Cacho has to come in like there's no call for such rank or Vice. Like, why are you so pissed? Like, calm down, dude.
And this is towards the civilians, right?
Yes.
Yeah. Or the prisoners, I guess.
She's like, we should hear them out.
Yeah.
So they go on about, our sons sounded like you and they're dead now and we got food and shelter. And Vice is like, shelter, fodder, you enjoy all the luxuries of cattle. Doubtless you will so long as you remain. But do you not long to be free to live as men? You are Wallister, where is your pride? And they just won't listen, right? So Lanark comes in. Sorry I was delayed. Can I have a word with you?
Yeah.
You step out. And this is where he lays out the real reason they're here.
Yes, which is a big deal. This is how chapter 1 ends, with this big decision.
So he basically says that the Duke knew this was going to happen, that they were going to refuse. And so their job now is to just massacre all of these Wallister here. All 5,000, I'm supposing?
5,000 is a lot of people to... that's like swords and shields. Like, they are going to revolt once they know that they're dying. And that's crazy.
How large
I don't know how
is
many
the
people.
force that they came here with?
I don't know, but 8 people in my party. Did Leonard have like more people?
What'd you say, Evan?
It tells you in the dialogue, Leonard was coming with a separate column of troops.
Yes.
Okay.
That's what I'm asking. How many were part of that force?
I mean, they don't give you numbers for obvious reasons. I think, we can presume
8.
it's appropriate for the number of... because they actually do carry it out, so...
Yeah.
They do, and so they would at least have many hundreds of people. But
separate force is essentially false Galgastani, right? They're dressed and meant to be...
I think
it's a false flag.
This is a mountainside town where the housing is built around mine shafts. I think it's fairly... You could presume it's probably easy to corral people.
Okay, good point. That's a very good point. So, yeah, that's true. Okay, then you wouldn't need as many people to pull off a massacre like that.
So, yeah, that's what they're there to do.
Crazy, though.
And they're going to...
Blame it
on the Galgastani. Yeah. That the Galgastani just massacred these people for no reason.
Yep.
And that will make the Wallister in other places, in other camps, they'll revolt. And the Galgastani who oppose the current regent will also revolt.
Right.
So the plan is these people need to be sacrificed.
Sacrifice this
in order for
Yeah.
our forces to grow, I think they say tenfold in the scene that comes after this, based on the Galgastani that joined them.
Right.
And this needs to be done, right? I would assume most players would be revolted by this idea.
That would be my
and
assumption.
would probably choose the option that we're going with for this initial playthrough, which is stop this lunacy.
Yeah, there was actually data on that. When they were remaking the game, they were really concerned about the fact that about 80% of players never actually play it through the law route. And that's why in this version and the PSP version, you have all of these extras in the lawful version, characters that you can't recruit in any other route.
So the game
Just,
really wants you to
play
kill
that
5,000 innocent people.
Yeah.
They're like, I can't
You
believe
have
people
to
didn't
drive
pick
the player a
that.
little
Let's
bit.
really make it, let's sweeten the deal. You still got to kill the people, but let's make it cooler now. Oh, great.
Well,
Yeah, and that's essentially it. That's what they did.
again, I'm trying to view this scene from the lens of what we talked about was the intention behind the game's themes.
Yeah, this is where it becomes more difficult.
And it's just hard for me to see this as a
choice at all.
could go either
Yeah.
way with this. I mean, there's no justification. It's quite obviously evil to do this.
Yeah.
It's
I was shocked when the
It's-
choice presented itself, where I was
Yeah.
like, are you serious? You want me to no? And but like then I got curious and I ended up watching what happens if you do it both ways.
yeah.
But yeah, I was shocked that it was even a question at all. Like the scene shocked me enough to where I was like, holy cow, oh my gosh, the Duke, oh, this is crazy. And I was really kind of excited. Like, wow, this story's really take a left turn here, and I'm really excited to see what's gonna happen now. But as soon as it presented me with this choice where I could do it, it kind of drained my energy a little bit, and it kind of made me like the effect of the what would you call that? The adrenaline, the shock of the whole situation kind of started to like the fact that I could actually do this at all. I mean, of course, there's a morbid curiosity there, which would be everyone who said to do that. But I really did not see that coming at all, that Denim was a character who even could maybe do something like that. So, okay, so then I have to kind of rewrite who this character even is in my mind. But then as I watched the other ending as well, that kind of rewrote all the characters in my mind.
Yeah.
And so the way that I see it, we actually have two different sets of characters. And that became really confusing for me right here at this turn. Because I don't know who Denim is anymore, and I really don't know who Vice?
Yeah.
Levi, right?
Vice in this version.
Yeah. And Kachua, I don't have a grasp on those characters at all anymore after this. And it really deflated what otherwise was an adrenaline pumping moment that was really interesting.
I had similar feelings because, well, we skipped one scene. I feel bad about this now between Lancelot and
Oh yeah, where they
Denim.
talked.
Talks about his wife, and he has the music box.
He has the music box. That's right. Yeah.
Um,
His wife was killed.
before I make a comment on this, feeling like it was a scene that, for me at least, didn't accomplish a lot in this first act of the story.
Right.
I would have rather had that scene been one that set up this choice better.
Sure.
Where it's like Vice and Kachua and Denim are together, talking about how far they've come.
Well, hey, what if
want.
Vice has? Well, I guess it was Denim's father who was taken, or was it Vice's?
It was
Vice's dad
Denim's
was
father.
killed.
Okay, Vice's
comes
dad
up
was
later.
killed. What if Vice had a music box from his family? Like, well, it didn't. It could be basically the same scene, just
when they
Vice
develop
instead
Vice's
of.
childhood, it's very different feelings there. So I don't think he really. It'll come up later.
Okay, fair enough.
Well,
It doesn't have to be that exactly. It just needs to be a scene between Vice and Denim where they're having a moment.
It coming later wouldn't really address the problem I had connecting with this scene, because it was hard for me to understand why Denim would ever choose to go law route.
Yeah.
I haven't had scenes that set up how he could be persuaded to think in this way.
Yeah.
That the means are justified by the ends.
By the end, yeah.
It's really rich, in fact, that Lancelot is carrying this out, because he said something very similar about the Liberation Front. He said something about their ends are not justified by their means.
Okay.
And I'm assuming he knew at that point.
You're talking about Leonard or Lancelot?
Leonard.
Okay, yeah, Leonard.
Did he already know that they were going to be doing this, or was this a scene that happened after?
Go
ahead,
That scene
Ivan.
happened after we came back from meaning
Okay.
with
Oh, okay. I thought it was
so
a
they came
flashback.
back from Phydock Castle. That's when Ronway told him to do this.
Okay.
yeah.
Okay. All right. Anyway, so it's rich. It's just really rich coming from him
Yeah. Yeah.
after having said that. The
he's saying
hypocrisy of that
loyalty
character
is-
is crazy.
Yeah. Yeah.
So there's no connection for me where Denham would have come to a conclusion that this is necessary and
Yeah.
that it's justified somehow.
Yes.
So
I totally agree.
The
And that's why
co-
even the presentation of the questions at all really just made me kind of like raise my eyebrows.
and it's much more natural based on. Hold on one second, Ivan. I'll come back to you. I'm. It's tough when we're delayed a slight bit,
Yeah.
and I see you coming in. It's like I want to get you in, so I want to make sure we pass it to you. It's much more natural for me to believe that Vice would do it because
Right.
he's disgusted by the fact that these people won't fight for their freedom.
Right.
So the
So what
only
use are
route,
they? They're cattle. He called them cattle.
yes,
It's like, all right, well, I'll just kill the cattle. That's no big deal, right?
the only choice that makes any sense based on what I know about these characters and the way that they have acted so far is to say stop this lunacy and go chaos or neutral.
Yeah.
At this point, if you are not familiar with the law route or what happens when you make the other decision, I would consider you to just drop out right now and to not go further. Mike and I kind of come to this opinion at this point that you really ought to just play all of one path before you familiarize yourself with or look into what happens in the other paths when you make a different choice. Especially with some stuff that happens later on that we talk about in this podcast. After the podcast ends, we kind of had a little bit of a discussion more, Mike and I, with our Discord. And we came to the conclusion that you really ought to just play one of these routes all the way through instead of looking up and familiarizing yourself with what happens when you make one of the other choices. This is one of those moments where you'll see what we're talking about. But I just would encourage anybody who thinks we're being too critical to listen to the end, because we really do come to a point, especially considering that this was Hironobu Sakaguchi's favorite game at one point in time, that we really ought to really try to understand exactly why somebody like Sakaguchi would think or say something like that, or why somebody like Matsuno would make the decisions that he made. If you are not familiar with Law Route, do not look it up. And for the best experience, I think you should play the Chaos or Neutral route all the way through, and then come back to play Law after you've finished an entire route.
But when I watched the lawful version of it, it basically turns Vice into a plot device instead of a character.
He's not a character. Yeah,
like,
I agree.
all of a sudden, he just does a total 180 as a person.
Yeah.
He's talking completely differently. He's like super compassionate and like there's no way you could do this to these people. Mm-hmm. And he's never spoken like this previous to this time.
Right.
So the choice ended up for me seeming really cheap and kind of pointless.
Yeah.
I'm hoping that in the long run, when we come back around to Law and we kind of like go through that, that they'll find a way to justify this. But it came across to me that it wasn't super well thought through on the part of how the characters respond to this. Because like you're saying, Kachua's just going to go with Denham no matter what.
Yeah.
Canopus is going to go with Denham no matter what, I believe.
I don't know what
so
his
he just
deal
doesn't
is, but yeah.
He's just going to stand there with you and like massacre these people. What does that say about him as a character if you choose Law? It's tough. It's
hard,
tough for me to believe in Law at all.
Right.
It does not make sense for who these characters have been presented up to this point. Now that I've said my piece, let's pass it over.
I think you do have to kind of make your choices with Denham specifically in mind for the Law route, but I think there is enough writing there to make it seem like the character is rationalizing to himself why he would do it. For example, we did talk about the Sistina choice, where you can actually take a very nationalist position, and
Right.
to the degree where it's like, no, we can't have peace with other people. We have to build a nation for ourselves. And when you're talking like that, I mean, that is literally, I mean, not to get all political, but that is literally like a white nationalist theme. It's create a nation for our people, et cetera, et cetera. It is a very radical proposition in terms of real world politics. So it's not beyond imagination that a character that would say something like that would also be willing to do something in the name of his country that is abhorrent.
Okay.
I can see where you're coming from on that, but I guess I didn't read what he actually says there, like the words on the page.
I have some right
as
here.
being that radical.
No, he said Denham says they must build a country of their own if their people are to have any future. That's more where Denham was coming from. It is nationalism, you're right. But it's less it's less extreme
those
in
are
my
the
opinion.
literal 14 words.
What?
Say it again.
That is a white nationalist trope. The 14 words. We must create a future for our people and a future for white children. You know that.
Is that maybe what Matsuno was drawing from?
I don't know if that's on purpose, but it's very much
because here's the thing. That's what Palestine is saying right now. The same thing. We need a future for our country. That's what Kurdish people of Turkey and Iraq. That's what Ukraine parts of. That's what all over the world. Yemen and Malaysia and all the places in conflict. That's what they're all. That's what they're all saying right now. Is we need a place for our people, and so.
Do we interpret that every time?
Right. Is that always horrific white nationalists? They should all go away. Please stop. Or can we maybe see what they're coming from?
I'm just saying that this is the sort of ideology that does drive people to do acts such as the one portrayed in the game.
Okay, that's fair enough. That's fair.
I think you're right.
That's fair.
I think you're right that it does.
Going back to the Matsuno, how are conflicts resolved? I think it's trying to show you that some people would make that choice that way. I think,
and based on that rationale,
the hero of a JRPG is like a good person, but they might not necessarily be. In this case, Denham starts off with a neutral alignment, and his actions are open to interpretation. And I think he avoids characterizing him too deeply in the beginning of the game, specifically to allow this sort of choice to feel justified. It might not be very well written, but I think they did try.
Like, I think what you're saying is right. I think, it's particularly in like Super Nintendo era games, right, where their scripts were very limited. They couldn't say
they had a lot of
words.
constraints.
There often was a lot of room for the player to sort of interpret how that's being said or whatnot. And, sometimes that could lead to two different players getting very different feelings about how a character is or whatever. But since they're adding a lot into this version of the game, it's just my feeling that line alone is not enough for me.
I think there is a lot more to the context of everything that's happening in the game that will allow you to read that. I think the line alone does not, but it is one of the pieces of evidence that I would use to show that there is setup for this.
Yeah, I'm just my. I
do think the lawful route, we will find that there is a lot of characters rationalizing to themselves why they would do something like that, and that entire route is an exploration for how people justify doing something like that after the fact themselves, and that's a lot of the appeal of that route. And I think the setup for it might be a little weak, but the actual content is going to be very strong. There's a reason we saved it for last.
the law route.
The law route?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. I don't know. There's that scene with Lancelot, and I think it's a good scene. I like the dialogue. I like that he talks about his wife.
And give some
I'm sure
character.
that's maybe setting something up that they'll return to at some point later in the story. But it's not something that gets paid off or is really pertinent to chapter 1 necessarily. And I just would have loved to have seen another scene, or maybe two, spread throughout chapter 1, where Vice and Kashua and Denim talk about how far are we willing to go
Sure.
to achieve this end, and what is justified and what is not. And this could be something that, like you're saying, that the kind of the devil and the angel on
Right.
Denim's shoulder. Kachua argues one way,
Yeah.
Denim argues the other way, and then they present you with the choice based on which character you found more persuasive or something like that. I think had they built it up that way, this choice would have felt more natural, where you're sitting there going, man, like I've been presented with consequences. If I don't do this, the Wallister are going to be wiped out. All of my people will die.
Sure.
Like some sort of
Heighten the
consequence
stakes a little.
to give me a reason to even consider
Right.
massacring 5,000 people.
Because for me, it was just morbid curiosity or not. Like, hey, are you morbidly curious or no? Or are you
Yeah.
just like normal? And that was what the question. That was how I read both of those lines.
Yeah.
Like, hey, do you want to be Denim or do you want to be like some super evil crazy person?
Yeah.
Denim.
I think Denim's writing in the law route will justify itself. I think.
Okay. Okay. I look forward to that then.
I'm not even necessarily trying to put doubt on that, because it very well could, and I believe you that it will.
But at this point,
I just feel like in order for this moment to have hit me the way that I think it was meant to, I would have needed to have seen these characters consider this kind of consequence one way or the other, and that the player has to wrestle with it in a way that's more nuanced. Because it's basically what I'm saying is, I think from what Matsuno was saying was his goal with the theme of the game, he didn't want this to feel like a good and evil route. He didn't want it to come across that way. He was trying to...
Really?
Yes.
okay.
It really does.
Is there a translation error, or I'm starting to really? That doesn't. We'll see. I guess.
When we get to it, you'll see what he meant by that.
Well, just because the results end up
right.
Okay, but hold on.
Mike is right in that it's such an extreme choice that you don't really feel like picking the less obviously good option.
Yes, exactly. But here's the thing. Just because the results end up, that actually worked out better in the long run. Okay, but you don't know any of that. This is about making choices with the information that you do have at this point in this game. And yeah, he knows that in the long run, this...
I'm saying the writing is...
But for Matsuno to say that it's not the evil route because the ends end up being better later, I don't know. I guess he needs to define the word evil, maybe.
I'm not even trying to necessarily read too much into that Matsuno quote about this choice or something. I'm just trying to, in general, I think he wanted to present the player with choices and not have them feel like they're condemned for making them, or that this is evil to do this. This is obviously good. He didn't like those types of dynamics.
So then the question is, why did he do it?
Well, that's why I'm questioning the presentation and the build up to this. Because in my opinion, if the goal was for the player not to feel like this was evil to do necessarily, or that it was a necessary evil or something,
right.
I didn't get that. I felt this is appalling.
Good, bad, yeah, right.
This is horrible.
Yeah.
I would never do this for any reason.
Right.
And that sort of collides or comes in contact into conflict, I mean to say, with his stated thematic premise.
Okay, so if you're to judge him based on his own standard.
Yes, that's what I'm trying to do.
Gotcha.
I'm not. If I hadn't heard that going into this, I probably wouldn't even be thinking along these lines. I'd be like, "Oh wow, it's freaking crazy." But I was expecting, based on what I had heard him say, what I had heard other people say about the game, that the choices would be. You'd be sitting there going, like, "Man, like." I don't know what the right choice is here. Like,
Right,
I'm
that's
not
what
sure.
I was expecting. That's
Yeah.
why this really just deflated me when I saw it. I was like, I just wanted to laugh. Like, are you kidding me? Like, what? I thought this game was like nuanced and anyways, but we just have to see where it goes.
But the choice is very blunt in its presentation. It doesn't really try to justify the evil path. It doesn't front load that justification anyway. It kind of
Right. It becomes the ends
end up looking back on it and
justify it
thinking
later.
like, what the hell was I thinking? You know, and that's a lot of what the law route ends up being about. But I think what he's really trying to do is it goes back to how conflicts get resolved, right?
Right.
Sometimes they get resolved because some stupid children get talked into doing something very evil when they're young, and
I can go with that.
radical.
Sure. Yes, I can go with that. That's good. Actually, that's really good. Here's the other thing. Here's the other thing, though. So, dang it! I had something and I just totally lost it.
Well, I'll just
Yeah,
say
I lost
this.
it. You go.
I also, the other element of this that I guess kind of surprised me a little bit, or that I wasn't expecting, was that Vice just does the opposite of you.
That was
Right.
the most shocking part.
I was like,
Yeah.
man, wouldn't it have been interesting, I guess, had you chose the law route and then you fight with Vice?
With Vice, yes. I
For
think
the rest of the game.
because the assumption is Vice is a character that has been thought through and that is making these decisions because this is his character and how he's been written. But what you find out is that he's not actually a person. He's not a character. He's mostly just a plot device. So the assumption that this is a character who will behave in a consistent manner depending on what I do, was just a wrong assumption, right?
Yeah.
Because the fact is he is merely there to foil, to counter whatever choice you make, and he just does the opposite. In which case, he's less of like a real.
I think there is a consistent motivation of resentment and jealousy to that character, regardless of what you do, which is kind of what makes him a contrarian. But I think that your take on it is very common. I think I've seen a lot of people in the Discord saying pretty much the same thing about Vice.
Okay.
So, I mean, it is very. I think this type of character was not developed nearly enough. I think he did a much better job in later games where he had rival characters which had a little bit more substance to them.
Well, yeah.
Yeah.
We were bringing this up on the way here with.
FF
I
Tactics.
think this dynamic
Yeah.
was perfectly executed in Final Fantasy Tactics with
Yes.
Delita and Ramza.
Yeah, very good.
Because you got a lot of scenes with them being
Beforehand.
friends.
Yeah, and it was
and
an
just,
understandable.
like, genuinely bonding and connecting.
Yeah.
And it made it so tragic. And Delita had a real reason to be as angry
Right.
and to act like he did. His sister, well, I don't want to spoil it for
Maybe
people
we
who
shouldn't
played
say
the game.
everything, but there was
But-
a reason, and it was less purely, completely black and white.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So having come from that to this, I guess I was seeing a similar dynamic kind of being set up, but it's really not in
Yeah.
the long run. Vice and Denim do not have the same relationship as Delita and Ramza.
What relationship do they have? After this scene, after seeing this scene, both Law and Chaos, I would suggest that they don't have any relationship.
No.
That
do
there
now.
is no relationship. No, because Vice is, you can't build a relationship with something that's that's not a person. Anyways, I don't know.
What were you going to say?
He's a plot device. You can't have a relationship with a plot device.
Well, his character gets developed in both routes as we go on. It gets developed in two different directions, and I think there is ways to interpret that, depending. We talked about it in the Discord quite a bit.
Oh, did you?
Yeah, But I think as we go on later in the game, that'll be worth discussing more. I think we haven't seen the last of Vice and his impact on the story yet.
What?
Well, we'll probably have to revisit this then.
What I can see happening here is it's almost like Denim and Vice were like what I could have seen being effective is if they were real blank slates through chapter 1, and then their real characters start developing chapter 2. It's like depending on the direction you go, these characters actually start becoming characters. So if Denim is the type of person who would massacre 5,000 people, he is the kind of character that goes this way, and now we start developing him as a person. And Vice also. Or
these
vice
are just
versa.
like two different games, basically. They're just like two different people. They're just if he's this person, then this. If he's not, then that. But I hope that the story would give me that. But instead, it's like it's just two different.
I think that would have worked if Vice hadn't been so completely unlikably aggressive all the time.
Yeah.
If he had been a little more neutral, or just kind of blank slate, or just Cashua was sort of the one dragging him along,
right?
Then it wouldn't have surprised me as much. But the way that Vice acts the whole time leads me to believe he's the one who would do that. Not.
If anyone were to do it, he would be the one to do it. But I wouldn't think that he would have done it either.
Sure.
Honestly. Anyways. But who we have not really touched on. Okay, there's two things I want to bring up. I want to talk about Kachua a little bit. Because her response when you look at both of them is very interesting, and it's very what you had said in the last episode, where you're like, I don't know, I wonder what's up with Kachua. All of a sudden, it's like, whoa, there's something interesting about Kachua. So we'll just put it that way, and she may be very consistent. But Reborn, now that we know that Reborn has added tons of characters and tons of scenes and tons of dialogue, yet this still plays out the same, even though Matsuno recognized, no one's doing law, dang it. He could have inserted something, since he created new characters, he created all sorts of different stuff. He could have given us a little bit more from Vice. He could have maybe lessened that kill 5,000 of your own people, situation, and been like, maybe it was like well, gosh, I'd have to know how the rest of the story goes. But maybe it was something else.
I think a lot of this character analysis will go a lot further with more context later on. Chapter 1, it just kind of wets your beak. It does.
But it does present you with a good/bad for the character at this point in time, right? And this is the funny thing, is that most people never even played Law, and so the perception would have been, oh, that's the evil route. And I just played the good route. I don't even know what happens if you play the evil route, right? Because nobody played it. You wouldn't find out that, the ends justify the means at the end. Like, okay, sure, whatever.
Well, I never said that, but I think the characters justify to themselves. It's a lot of it's a more psychoanalytical approach to looking back at, oh shit, what did I do?
Well, that might be fun. Okay, so it is the evil route, but then they regret being evil.
You definitely have to make an evil choice to go down that route.
Okay, gotcha. All right. Well, those are the two things I want to bring up.
I think.
Okay, go ahead.
That's probably a good place to leave off.
No, Kachua, dude.
Oh, go ahead.
I just want Kachua. Like, I want you guys to talk about it. Like, she's going with Denim either way. She doesn't care much that these people are dying.
She only cares about
She is just like, hey, Denim, you want to kill 5,000? I'll be right there with you, man. If you don't want to, hey, I'm going with you no matter what you do. I'm going to stay with you, right? Why, right? Now, Kachua's older than Denim, right? Yeah. She's outsourcing, because she was the moral crusader before. Like, more war means more bloodshed. We can't let more people die. We don't want this. We want peace. We want help. And then it's like, oh, you killed 5,000? All right, dude, I'm here with you, man. Like, you do it, and I will keep following you.
I'll support you.
She's the older sister who was the voice of reason and ethics. But I don't sense a dramatic reversal in her character here, mostly because of what you had said last episode,
Oh.
where you're like, she has an ulterior motive that has been hinted at presently enough for you to have picked up on it. And that makes her all the more interesting for this. There's a reason why we're focusing on Denim making that choice at all and Vice's reaction. And we haven't actually brought up Kachua that much because I don't know what's going on with her yet. And this may very well be in her character. It is not in Denim's character. It is not in Vice's character to do either whatever he does because he's not a character. He's a plot device. But Kachua, she seems to still be a character. She still has character status in my brain. And I am very intrigued as to where she's going to go with this and what exactly is the reason why she is so attached to Denim and totally gives up on the ethical front for this cause just so that she can stay with Denim.
Yeah, there was an
Kachua is such a
insinuation.
fascinating character. There's so much to say about her.
Good.
There was an
She's,
insinuation from Vice earlier that she's willing to use people.
Yes.
So
So
I've been
she might
kinda
be
curious about
driving.
that.
She might be driving Denim. She might be using Denim a little bit in certain ways. But I don't know. I just wonder.
We'll have to find out.
She's once again. She is the older sister. I just got to emphasize this. She likely is the one that was taking care of Denim.
She's kind of a mother figure. That's kind of the implication that she was
absolutely
kind of babying Denim.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Before we end, just note that Ravnus dies when we choose not
That's right.
to
Yeah, I was wondering about that.
shoot her with a crossbow.
Because she
Yes.
falls, but you don't see her little sprite disappear. But she died.
I guess because she didn't warp.
There's going to be a scene in the Warren Report under the tidings section that will not. Usually, that only contains scenes that you see. But in Chapter 2, make sure to check that and verify because there's going to be several scenes that happen in Chapter 2 Chaos that will only happen if you go into the Warren Report and check tidings. And Ravnus' fate in Chapter 2, at the beginning of Chapter 2, is one of those events.
Okay.
Very interesting.
It's
But
gonna
she
have
survives.
Ravnus' final
But in the other choice, she survives, and she becomes the new mother figure. I think she even says
Well,
something
no.
like that. No, she says
the
something
other-
like, "Oh, I'm going to watch over them," or "Am I
It was
meant
shepherd to them.
Am I meant to shepherd them?" Maybe mother isn't the
Hold
right
on.
word, but
If you go down the lawful route, you actually have to fight her alongside the other army that shows up, just as you would in the chaotic route. You have a battle.
yeah, but she doesn't
she's
die.
fighting both you and the enemy, and she will only survive if you manage to not kill her during that encounter. And
Oh.
it's very hard to do.
So you can
'Cause I just-
kill her if you go lawful. You can actually kill her in that fight.
She's going to start off very close to you, and she's hostile to both you and the enemy. And so she's going to be targets for both, and she's going to be targeting you. And
Yeah. I guess we forgot to bring up that she is descended from Galgastani.
That's
this
right.
was
yeah.
actually set up a couple battles earlier where she knew like
Yeah.
the captain or whatever.
That's
of
right,
that
and they're
battle.
like, "What?
She
Dame
talked to him
Ravnus?"
directly
Yeah.
and was like, "Oh wow, like you're gonna pay for your butchery or something like that." So she knows Galgastani soldiers, and Lannar calls her out when she basically like is not going to stand for this. Oh, I shouldn't have expected more from someone of mixed blood or something like that.
Yeah, he says that you've broken faith. You've broken faith with the loyalty, right?
Yeah.
With the Duke. And she says, "I break no faith," right?
I renounce the Duke.
That's because, well, she has a faith in a higher power, right? So she can remain true to her principles and yet not loyal to this immediate, hierarchy, but still maintain her faithfulness, right? Because she is like she's operating under the authority of something above the Duke. Whereas Lennar, I guess, is like, "Hey, man, the Duke's it for me, dude. If he says do it, I'm going to do it."
Yeah.
But yeah. And am I wrong? Because if she survives, she has some. Because I just watched this one on YouTube for the Law Route, but if she survives, she says something like, "Is it true?" Like almost as if she's talking to the goddesses or something. Like, "Is it true? Do you want me to like guide these youths? Okay, I'll do it if I must." Like as if fate has bequeathed her this position.
if she survives. If
she survives, then
you
she
don't-
becomes okay. But apparently
Well,
that's
you
not
can
common.
The recruitment process for her, I misspoke in the original episode because I got confused by the question, but
That's
there
all
are
good.
a lot of characters that are somewhat difficult to recruit, especially in the lawful route specifically, and she is one of them. She's very easily missable in several different ways. You could accidentally kill her. You could accidentally miss the fight where you have to meet her again. You could accidentally get her killed again. So many ways that you might not get her in your party. So I would suggest consulting a guide when we get
Okay.
to the lawful route. But yeah, if she survives, she does have a few lines. But her impact on the story really depends on how much you go out of your way to make sure she joins the team. The lawful
Okay.
route has a whole dynamic where there are consequences to that choice that are fairly significant. Obviously.
Yeah. Okay.
But before we go, I also just want to make sure, as you go through the game, you make sure that you read the talk section and check the tidings section of the Warren Report on a regular basis.
Yeah.
A lot of the context for events is set up in the text there.
Yeah. I'll make sure I do that from now on. I remember early on I went through everything in the Warren Report, but I haven't checked it probably since the second or third battle or something like that. So I'm probably a lot to catch up on now. Anyway.
All right.
And every chapter it gets erased, like stuff from previously, so you won't like
Oh,
the
really?
talk section.
Oh, that
the talk
sucks.
section.
Oh, the
So
talk.
only the talk. The tidings and everything else, you can go back through the entire game.
Is there a
The talk section
repository
is
where
only-
we can just see all of those?
Like
in
online
case we
somewhere.
missed any?
Probably. I write them down as I've been going along. So
Okay. All right,
I'm
good to
just
know.
letting you know.
Okay.
Make
Thank
sure
you.
you read that because that is some important context in there.
Okay.
All right, good tip. We'll be back next week. Oh, let us know where we got to play up to next time.
Yeah.
Just beat chapter 2.
Chapter
But
2.
is there a choice at the end?
Yes, and I forget the one, but you're gonna be a choice. Do you rejoin, or do you continue on your own and you want to rejoin?
Rejoin. Okay,
Okay.
so the choice we want to
So
make
we're
is
gonna
rejoin,
rejoin.
and that will go
I don't remember
neutral.
the specific dialogue option, but from the context of the conversation, you're gonna have the option rejoin, not rejoin. Rejoin.
Okay.
And this would mean rejoining is neutral and not rejoining is chaotic.
Yes.
Okay. So rejoin, everybody, if you're playing along with us.
Rejoin, finish chapter 2.
We'll see you next week to discuss chapter 2. Peace out.
I kept wanting to reframe my point and to try to get across why I felt so strange about that whole situation. I might end up editing it down just a little bit in the final.
That is totally fine.
Because what I don't want for us to do is to just like harp on the game too much, especially as Ivan hints that there's some stuff later on. The thing is, if there's something later on that justifies, or not justifies, because that's not right. If there's something later on that, what's his name? That Vice, that is like, oh, okay, I guess Vice would have done that. Okay, then he would have done it, but all he does is the opposite of what we say, and that's what really, that's what really
It
kills
doesn't
me.
take away the criticism for me
Yes,
that
me
this should have been set up better.
from the beginning, even
Yes.
if later on, okay, but no one did the law.
If
route,
the
apparently.
justification comes later, like,
Yeah,
so be it.
that doesn't matter.
But it doesn't.
Yeah.
This scene, in order for this scene to be effective, in order for it to have its maximum effect,
There needs to be a reason to pick the other thing. There
Yes.
just and there was no reason at all.
yes, I feel like, given the context of the intention, the thematic intention of the story, that it was a failure on his part to set that up appropriately, so that you could sit there and like really be conflicted about that choice, right?
Yeah.
And feel like, gosh, this is terrible, but so is the consequence of not doing it.
Yeah,
Right?
exactly,
Like,
exactly.
I'm damned either way,
Right.
kind of a feeling, right?
Yeah.
And that's not how it comes across.
Not at all. And I was already mistrusting the Duke anyway. So even when the Duke says, "Oh, this will be better for our military in the long run, and then we'll be able to win victory," it's like, yeah, but I don't believe you, and I don't trust you at all. Like, you're kind of just playing both sides of the field. So he was not an authority figure to use in the decision-making process at all, anyways. So it didn't really make a difference.
We have Kyle saying, "I really want to push back on this."
Yeah,
push back on what?
Well, but I think Kyle's alluding. He's saying he wants to push back. Okay, that without spoiling though, please, without spoiling that's what I would ask.
push
because-
back on what point?
On that Vice is a plot device. Oh, where Denham? You can see a world in which Denham would find the decision of killing his
Well,
town.
I can see it too
this
if I
town
imagine the
justifiable.
reason. But what was the given reason in the game?
What did the game present us in terms of character?
At what point in the game's text did they show me Denham as the type of person who would consider this?
Okay, thank you, Kyle. No spoiler.
Like, based on the text we've read so far, the scenes we have seen so far.
Yeah.
At what point do I look at Denham and go, yeah, he's the kind of person who would make that choice? If Denham's a blank slate, then we're not given a reason to think he would make a choice. He's just an avatar for me to make a choice. But what reason have I been given based on what I've seen that would make me think that's the right thing
choice
to do?
Yeah, let's do that one. 50-50, you know?
So either Denham is a character who has been given a strong reason to do that, or he's a blank slate, and I'm supposed to be given a reason, and I haven't seen what that reason is. I see nothing that justifies it.
Yeah.
So from what context that we have actually seen in the game so far, is Denham given a motivation or a reason to have made that choice where I would believe, he, based on what I've seen from him, based on his development so far, that's a choice that I believe he would make. What is Dude McGuy saying? It's too small for me to read.
Yeah, Dude McGuy says, I think there would be a disconnect with the Bamamusa scene where Matsuno expects the player to roleplay Denham's choice. The player picks what they want, regardless of what Denham would choose. But once again, but Matsuno also wanted to present a rivalry story between Denham and Vice, no matter what choice you pick. I know, but it's cheap. Okay.
Though I think he agrees with that.
This causes an issue. I know, but I'm just talking to Matsuno. In my head, I'm arguing with Matsuno.
Oh, with Matsuno.
Okay. Dude McGuy. This causes an issue if you examine the characters with a literary analysis perspective, which is what we're doing, which is why we're having such trouble here, that is looking to the text for setups and payoffs in this big dramatic moment, separate what the player will choose to do. Separate from what the player would choose to do. Yeah, Mike is coming at it from a literary analysis standpoint. He doesn't see any of the setups in the story to make Denham's law choice to be justified by the text, and I would agree. But to make sense of Denham choosing law, you kind of have to headcanon a bit. That Denham is so young and vengeful and stupid and idiot and dumb and wrong and that he's convinced himself that he's on the quote right side and that this is a necessary evil. I haven't gotten that, but you would have
Denham's
to make it
own
up.
Words.
You have to make it up yourself.
Denham's own words.
Yeah.
Well, I got the text right here. When he even brings it up to him, he doesn't go, "Oh yeah, you're right, Leonard." Like Leonard says to him, I overheard your conversation. These people do not convince easily. No matter. We feared it would come to this. Listen to me. There's something you must do. You must kill them, all of them, sparing no one. And Denham's reaction is, what? With a exclamation mark and a question mark.
Which was my reaction.
Serious?
Perfect, yes.
That connotates, that's appalling.
Shock? Yes.
Not, oh yeah.
What? Okay, I'll do it.
That's probably our only choice. Like, you know what I mean? Again, I'm not saying that a person in Denham's position, having almost his entire clan wiped out and would not be vengeful, would not be willing to do it. I could see a person coming from that background having gotten to that sort of the ends justify the means, but not everybody would.
Right.
Even people who've been through horrific things would not justify that. But it can happen. So at what point did that happen for Denham? I just haven't seen a scene in which I've seen the extent of his radicalism going that far.
Right. You see a little bit with Vice, but you don't see that with Denham. Dude Mackay has this last line here. He says, you have to consider that the player's choice here is writing the characters.
Yeah.
We play an active role in writing Denham as we play the game, which means that Matsuno outsourced the writing to us, which means your critique on whether or not it worked or not is a critique of yourself for making that choice in the first place.
Sure. And that's kind of what I was landing on towards the end there. If the idea is these characters are blank slates and their real character writing begins in chapter 2, like I could see that being the intention.
Okay.
It again doesn't work for me because that's not what Vice is. Vice is not a blank slate.
Right, yeah. They very much filled out his character, his plot device.
They made him totally be the chaotic or neutral route version.
Yeah.
And every other point in which we encountered him before this, he was never compassionate. He was never willing to, I guess in the one scene where he didn't talk at all, but that was more, it just seemed like an oversight.
My headcanon since we're just writing the character here, he had a headache. He had a migraine. The light was too bright. He just didn't want to deal with it. That's my headcanon.
What is Kyle saying?
Kyle said Denham is presented as sympathetic, yes, but that doesn't change his mission. He might be sympathetic and still committed to the greater cause. But you have to decide that.
Yes.
Matsuno did not help us make that decision. You just have to think, oh, I might do that, in which case, well, I won't finish that sentence.
There is no point at which we are shown that he is that person.
Yeah, I don't think so.
That he is the person Kyle's describing. There's no scene in which we see that.
What Dude McGuy is saying, though, is that if you're approaching it that way, you're approaching it the wrong way, because this game isn't meant to be analyzed in this way because you're a writer and you're criticizing yourself for choosing that if you chose it.
I mean...
right? But we got to do law route.
It didn't make any logical sense based on
that he
these
would at
characters' interactions with each other prior to this.
Schizophrenic break, like psychotic, like something just happened. Like, I don't know. If we have to headcanon it and we're co-writing this whole thing with Matsuno, then whatever your reason for doing it is, just make it up, just whatever it is, right? But I don't know how to analyze a story like that. I don't have the tools. Like, I can't do that. I can maybe analyze neutral or chaos, but I don't know that I can analyze law route if I'm expected to be seen as a co-writer of the story.
Okay, I'm going to want to spiral to what Kyle is saying here.
Okay.
You're being too rigid with the game. So
right.
First of all,
we can't analyze the story.
First of all, I want to say that I see these types of responses in basically any time I criticize a game. Literally any time I have a criticism of any game ever, someone comes at me and says, you're being too hard and you're being too rigid with it.
Right.
So what accounts for being legitimate criticism and what or valid a point, and what accounts for you, like, if it's supposed to be a write yourself story thing, then Denham should never have dialogue. It should always be my choice what to say. Denham should never have a scene where he goes to Leonard and comes across a certain way. He should never be given dialogue that I don't choose. Right. If it's a write yourself story, if he's an avatar for me, he should be a silent protagonist.
Sure.
And every time he's supposed to talk, I go and choose what he says.
Right.
But that's not the case.
Mass Effect or something.
In this game, he has a lot of his own lines.
Yeah.
A lot of his own dialogue.
And his own character.
And he does not come across this way at any point in those scenes. Yeah. He comes across as somebody who is measured, somebody who is calm, and somebody who is a well-adjusted person for the most part, but who cares and is passionate about the cause of his people. Vice comes across as someone who is impulsive and somebody who is willing to do literally anything, no matter what. But Denham has not ever, even when you choose the ones that are a little bit more aggressive, when in the scene with Leonard or with
Leonidas, what's his name?
Lance,
One-Eyed Lance.
Lancelot.
Yeah.
Even in those scenes, measured, calm, and a murderer.
CCC, calm, cool, collected,
listen,
and killer.
I'm not like trying to do anything other than just go off of what I believed was Matsuno's own intention with this, right? Matsuno didn't say Denham is a character you write in any of his interviews. So I didn't have that expectation. Doesn't mean maybe that I can't look at it that way.
We might need to adopt that.
That wasn't his intention.
How does this podcast work if we do that?
Yeah, I mean...
I don't know how to analyze stories like that. I just don't. I don't think I have the tools.
If this is a true role-playing game where you're supposed to write the character, you're supposed to create the character yourself, there are, I'm not saying there's no points, there are certain points where you can really kind of go one way or the other.
Right.
He could be very lenient with Zybeth. Hey, lay down your arms, come with us, I promise you won't be harmed, or no, you must pay the price. There is no forgiveness for what you've done. But none of these things are radical enough
slaughtering 5,000 innocent people
to go that far.
Yeah.
None of those choices, even the ones that are the more radical responses, are kill, murder 5,000 innocent people radical.
Of your own people.
Yes.
Like even, even if you're going to call them a nationalist. It's like, these are your people.
All
bro.
I'm saying is you would need one scene, or two would be great, but even just one, where Quechua, Vice, and Denham are sitting together, ready to head out toward Balamusa or whatever the fetch is called. Balmamusa.
Yeah.
Saying, hey, like, how far are we really, really willing to go with this?
Right.
Like,
and then
we've
Vice
come
would
this
say,
far,
I'd
but
do
like,
anything. And you'd have his
Yes.
anime moment. And it's like, okay, that's fine. And we kind of get that
anyway.
anyway.
You talk about, like, because Quechua has already sort of done this in the very beginning. She was like, I just want an end to the bloodshed. Like, we need more of that.
Right.
And we need Denham to have reason to be swayed one way or the other in order for then, when the choice is presented and you understand the consequences are both horrible, I kill all these people, but like it achieves this end for which I think is really, really important, or I don't, and there's something maybe even more horrible that I have to accept. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. Orkbrand says it's in part the fact that the characters are hypocrites, and so a lot of this is intentionally written, that they are acting hypocritically. But like, that sounds like an excuse for something. Gosh, I have the hardest time because Reborn was rewritten. They added new characters. They rewrote the story. That means that this is intentionally as is.
Yes.
Right? And so, I don't know. That's just interesting.
I don't know. I'm not sure. I don't want the scenario to change. I don't want them to make the choice less heinous. Like, I think that's a really, really strong sort of like way to end chapter 1. The Duke sent you here to massacre 5,000 people.
Totally.
That is like, holy crap.
Yeah, it's eye-opening.
That's really big. That's a really big moment, and I don't want that moment to change.
It was shocking, and my heart skipped while I was playing. I really thought this was going to be a big moment in video games, like, ever. Like, oh my gosh, this is so crazy. And the whole energy was taken out by Denham's response. But
all I want is for there to be a presented justification that is believable for the character to choose to do that heinous thing, to where I go, I don't agree with it, or maybe like I wouldn't do that, but based on this character's history and where they come from, I can understand why he would have done it.
Right. And they're saying, everyone in the chat is saying, that understanding will come later.
I don't think that's the best choice, though.
No, I don't either. I don't either. So the criticism's valid. And even Kyle mentions here, yes, your criticism is valid. But, he just says, it's just not as big a deal to some people as to others. And then everyone else is saying all will be revealed.
Yeah, and I respect a lot of things the game has done so far as well. I mean, like I said, I don't think I've seen anything from this era, the Super Nintendo era, that is nearly as like complex as what this is trying to accomplish.
Yes, and now that I know how much they added for Reborn, I actually wonder how much of this is Super Nintendo era that we're playing. Apparently, a ton of it is added.
Obviously like a groundbreaking type of like plot, which is why I'm assuming that Hironobu Sakaguchi was so impressed by it at the time, right?
Yeah.
Like, would have been just like, holy crap, like, this is next level.
Right.
I've never seen anything like this in a story before.
Yeah. And Hironobu Sakaguchi also didn't have, like I did, as soon as you get to that choice, and make the choice that you do, but there's this thing called YouTube, and I can just go look up the other ending. So the part of the reason why this is so difficult is because we both know the law result, not having done it yet. Theoretically, if you're playing this game, you play all the way up through to the neutral ending, and then you start the game over and then play the other ending. So you have all that context before you then go back
and do the
law
That's
run.
an interesting point.
But because YouTube exists, which Hironobu Sakaguchi, because I'm thinking of how would he have not cared about a plot device like this? Sakaguchi, the Gooch, right? The Gooch. How did he speak so highly of this game? Well,
point.
he probably played a whole line through
probably
first
played chaotic
and didn't realize that, Vice
didn't
is...
even play neutral. Yeah.
He may not.
Or law.
He may have never played law. I'll just say that. But it's probable that he did eventually play law, in which case he'll be like, that's interesting, they changed it. But he already has the context from completing the whole game before he switched over to just see the other choice, what would happen if the other choice.
This is a point I meant to say, and maybe I didn't make it strongly enough.
I can add it in. We're still streaming, right?
That's what I mean.
Okay, good.
You might want to go back through the stream and cut some of this in.
I might.
It helps.
I might. Sorry, Orcbrand, but he's in the comments.
But if you just go the chaotic choice here, it makes complete sense.
Right.
Like
if
the
you
story
don't pick
is
that choice,
completely natural
Yeah.
and flows exactly the way I would expect it to if you choose stop this lunacy.
Now, other than the jarring nature of the fact that there was a choice at all, that is what deflated me initially. But it's like, whatever, I wouldn't have known that other side until I played the game again for that choice.
To me, like the stop this lunacy choice is what I would have done. Right. And had I never even been interested in making the other, if I had played this back in the day,
then you never would have seen
I
law.
probably never would have seen the other one because I never would have done that.
Right.
And I would have just been like, okay, that flowed perfectly smoothly, and that's exactly how I would have expected it to
And
go.
that's how the game was supposed to be played, and that is probably how everybody in our comment section played it back in the day.
Yeah. I just would have assumed, I mean, it would have, Vice doing that, yes, I believe that. Denim doing that, so Quechua, everything works out.
Yeah.
If you choose that route.
And you just commit to it. And you don't use YouTube.
As a contrast, and it's literally just Vice turns into a different human being.
Yeah.
That I start going like, what the freak? That doesn't work for me.
Yeah. I think YouTube and technology ruined that for us here. In a way that had we played this game naturally, it wouldn't have been a problem until later, but then we would have had this additional context.
So as much as it may seem like I'm like criticizing or railing on this or I'm not enjoying it, that's not the case.
Yeah.
The choice that I made resulted in a scene that I loved and kept the story going on a path that
was a good scene.
Total sense to me and that I really like.
Yeah.
I was only caught up on the fact that, wait, this way makes no sense to me at all.
Yeah.
And I thought this was supposed to be one of those games where you're not supposed to be good or evil necessarily based on your choices. But it just seems obvious to me how evil it is.
Oh, totally. Yeah.
So that's all. That's all I'm really trying to say. I really like the game.
Very good.
But anyway.
I hope we hit on something with that. Let's see if everyone else agrees. Yeah, okay, Zidart says this. Even though I will probably be making choices I wouldn't have done to follow this podcast, I am going into it thinking the story is only what I see from start to finish in this route. Says I thought Denim was a blank slate and wanted to end the war after thinking about it a little bit more, so it made sense for me that he was willing to go so far as to put an end to the war after thinking about it. I probably would not have done this.
Killed 5,000
I wouldn't
people.
have either. Dude, even in Harvest Moon, I refused to drink wine. Because, when I play games, I really do import myself. And it's like, I really do. I role play, and I would not have done that. You're right. I would not have done that. Do you remember that?
That's freaking funny. Yeah, I do remember that now.
Oh my gosh, that was so funny, man.
I do remember that now.
I was like, I want to marry Karen, but I can't. Dude.
You just drink too much wine.
I don't drink wine. I did do a playthrough eventually where I drank a ton of wine and got drunk all the time, but that was as I got more older and curious about being morbidly curious. Right?
Yeah. There's also like a alcohol tolerance you build up in that game.
There is,
kind of important.
and because you have to beat her in a drinking contest, otherwise she doesn't like you.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah. All right, everybody.
All right, see you guys next time. Peace out.